Hei Shinjo looked at the alchemy furnace in her hand and frowned. She saw that there was a gap in the alchemy furnace. It was obviously caused by a bite from the Heaven and Earth Universe furnace. Only then did this guy remember that he had not replenished the alchemy furnace for a long time. No wonder the Heaven and Earth Universe furnace did not let go of this hot pot's alchemy furnace. She scanned her storage ring with her spiritual sense. All that was left was this pill furnace with a gap. The guy frowned, raised a claw to say, "Host, my alchemy furnace is broken. Can I borrow an alchemy furnace from others?" "Host, as an alchemist you don't even know the furnace is broken?" Moreover, who could tell him what was going on with the few vegetable leaves hanging on the alchemy furnace? The host could only look at the judges again. Those judges were probably annoyed by Hei Xinjia's repeated requests. The elderly judge said coldly, "The alchemy furnace is related to the result of the competition. You can't borrow it from others. Just use the cracked alchemy furnace." Hei Shinjo curled her lips. "If you don't want to exchange it, then don't. I can blind all of you even with this broken alchemy furnace." Therefore this fellow took out a large basin and randomly washed the cracked alchemy furnace before starting to refine the pills. Everyone saw that Empress Jio didn't care about the order in which the pills were put in. She stuffed the herbs into the cracked alchemy furnace and then watched the show while nibbling on the spirit fruits. Everyone had a look of understanding on their faces. This female Emperor of Zephyr was planning to give up everything. However, it was also true. She had found the formula on the spot, and the pill furnace had a gap, so it was impossible for her to successfully refine it. However, Prime Minister Sima was dumbfounded. This scene was too familiar. The pill furnace which had vegetables in it stuffed all the herbs into it. Wasn't this the way of winning all the herbs? Could it be? Prime Minister Sima's eyes narrowed. Could it be that their Majesty was actually pretending to win all the herbs in the previous Four Nations Grand Meeting? There was also Yi Dingjing and Bai Shuang. Could it be that both of them were their Majesty? Prime Minister Sima thought about it again. When the three winners appeared, their Majesty had found an excuse to stay in the garrison. Moreover, the expressions of those three winners were very similar to their Majesties. Prime Minister Sima stared at Empress Jio on the stage with his mouth agape. He had no words to describe His Majesty in his heart. Thousands of words converged into one sentence. His Majesty was simply too powerful to be human. When Emperor Jinglai and the others saw the expression of Prime Minister Sima as if he had seen a ghost, they couldn't help but look at each other. They wanted to mock him, but when they saw a certain someone, they immediately swallowed their words. At this moment the crowd let out a cry of surprise. They saw that Empress Jio had actually opened the lid of the cauldron and added a few more medicinal herbs into it. Could it be that this female Emperor of Zephyr didn't know that opening the lid of the cauldron midway was a major taboo in alchemy? However, it was also true. Her cauldron had a gap to begin with, so it didn't matter whether she opened the lid or not. As time passed, the medicinal fragrance on the stage became more and more intense. Everyone's gaze shifted from Empress Jio to the three competitors from the Li Hate Palace. Everyone felt that the first to complete the refinement would definitely be the three participants from the Li Hate Palace. As for the remaining participants, they could only compete for the fourth place. Among the three participants from the Li Hate Palace, the oldest, Zhong Mao, was even more confident. He scanned his surroundings and felt that his progress was the fastest. The first place belonged to him. Just as Zhong Mao was about to signal for him to complete the refinement, he heard a crisp voice, "Host, I've completed the refinement. Remember, I'm the first one to complete it." Zhong Mao followed the voice and looked over, his nose almost going crooked from anger. The one who raised her claws was the female Emperor of Zephyr. Was it her? And the refinement was completed? She was purely trying to stir up trouble for him. Forget it. In any case, the final assessment of the results didn't just depend on the length of time. Everyone looked at Empress Jio. However, almost everyone thought that Empress Jio was just fooling around and that it was impossible for her to successfully refine it. Prime Minister Sima's forehead and palms were covered in sweat. On one hand he was nervous, on the other hand he was excited. His Majesty might really succeed in refining it. After all, when her spiritual power was so low, she was able to completely defeat other people. This time she should be able to do it too, right? On the stage, one after another, contestants indicated that they had finished refining. The host memorized the sequence one by one, and his gaze would occasionally glance at Empress Jio in the corner. This was because this fellow was currently sitting on a chair, leisurely eating melon seeds. He didn't seem like he was here to compete, but rather he seemed like he was here to watch a show. Finally, the stipulated time limit was up. The judges started to assess the contestants' results from contestant number 1. Zhong Mao was contestant number 1. Contestant number 1 Li Hengong Zhong Mao has a 100% pill success rate, 7 high-grade pills, 3 middle-grade pills and 44 points. The moment the host's words left his mouth, everyone was in an uproar. Oh my god. A 100% pill success rate? This was too unbelievable. Moreover, the high-grade elixirs accounted for 70% of the total. This was definitely the best. Jing Lai Di and the others looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and bitterness. The Lai Hate Palace was much stronger than their countries. Not to mention anything else, just their alchemy skills were not a little inferior. Only He Xinjiu curled her lips. Not to mention anything else, this point was unlucky. 44 points. She was dead. As expected, other than the 2 contestants from the Li Hate Palace who had decent results, the majority of the remaining contestants had an 80% success rate. Among them, there were only about 4 or 5 high-grade pills. The difference between them and Zhong Mao was very obvious. Zhong Mao's face was very proud. The people from these countries were not on the same level as the Li Hate Palace. The Li Hate Palace could easily trample them under their feet. There was only one contestant left on the stage whose results had yet to be announced, and that was Empress Jiao, who was currently munching on melon seeds. Empress Jiao saw the judges walking over. This fellow kept the melon seeds and chairs into his storage ring, then stood in front of the operating table with his head held high and chest puffed out, waiting for the judges to announce the results. When the judges saw He Xinjiu's confident look, the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Where did this Empress of Zephyr's confidence come from? The referees had already prepared for the pill furnace to be filled with only a piece of charred medicinal liquid. However, when one of the referees lifted the lid of the pill furnace, he widened his eyes in horror and didn't speak for a long time. When the other referees saw the strange look on his face, they also came over and were all stunned on the spot. When Zhong Mao saw this, he pursed his lips. These referees were really rare and strange. He reckoned that the Zephyr female emperor had burned the medicinal liquid. What was there to see? It was more important to quickly announce that he was first place. Thus, he coughed and said, "Host, what is the result of the female emperor of Zephyr? It can't be a 0, right?" The judges were shocked by Zhong Mao's voice, and only then did they regain their senses. However, no one paid any attention to him. Instead, they looked at the calm and composed Empress Jiao in shock. "Your Majesty Fenghua, I didn't expect your alchemy skills to be so superb. You really don't show your true colors." The elderly judge praised. If an ordinary person heard such words, they would definitely say something modest. However, Empress Jiao was obviously not a modest person. This fellow sighed and said, "Actually, I can do better. It's just that the alchemy furnace has a gap, so my results are just SOSO now." The judges. If it was before, these judges would have scolded this Fenghua female emperor for bragging about her shamelessness. However, in front of the dazzling results, this kind of Zhang Yang had become a display of confidence. Each and every one of them was praising her as if they did not care about money. The audience below the stage did not understand what was going on. Why did it sound like the female emperor had really succeeded? Moreover, her results seemed to be pretty good. When Zhong Mao saw that no one was paying attention to him, he could not take it anymore. He raised his voice and asked again, "Host, what is the result of the female emperor?" The host had long disliked this arrogant Zhong Mao. He thought to himself, "I have seen people who are anxious, but this is the first time I have seen someone who is so anxious to slap his own face." He asked the elderly judge in a low voice, and then announced loudly, "Contestant number 30, the Eastern Phoenix country's female emperor of magnificence, has a 100% completion rate, 3 superior grade pills, 7 superior grade pills and 65 points." Boom. Both on and off the stage were instantly in an uproar. A 100% completion rate wasn't scary. What was scary was that this female emperor of magnificence had actually refined 3 superior grade pills. And with that broken pill furnace? Heavens, they weren't afraid of not knowing the goods, but they were afraid of comparing goods. Previously they had thought that Zhong Mao from the Lihen Palace was simply a peerless genius, but now that they saw him, he wasn't even fit to carry the shoes of the female emperor of Zephyr. And he even said that the female emperor of Zephyr had scored 0 points. How shameless. Those people from the East Feng Kingdom were all beaming with red light, their heads held high and their chests puffed out. Did you see that? Their Majesty was indeed awesome. What was wrong with the formula? What was wrong with eating fruits while refining pills? What was wrong with using a pill refining furnace with a gap? Wasn't the first pill refining furnace their Majesty's? You stupid humans don't know what their majesty is capable of. What's wrong with these words? Their majesty seems to be a human as well? Emperor Jinglai and the others were also shocked. That girl was actually so powerful? Could it be that she was looking for the formula and eating fruits on purpose? Was she just teasing them? As Empress Jio's points were very high, the total points of East Phoenix Country jumped to the first place in the alchemy competition, causing the people of East Phoenix Country to cheer and cheer. Prime Minister Sima was practically in tears. Their majesty could always bring them hope and surprise in a desperate situation. Having such a majesty was a great blessing for East Phoenix Country. Although He Xinjiu was very proud in her heart, she still pretended to be unperturbed as she walked down the stage and returned to her seat. However, after this fellow sat down, he stretched out his claw and poked a certain honored guest's hand. When a certain honored guest looked at her, this fellow smiled at a certain honored guest, feeling very proud. When a certain honored guest saw He Xinjiu's smug little appearance, his heart trembled. He sensed that the seal had loosened again, so he quickly held his breath and focused his mind, not looking at He Xinjiu anymore. The crowd's discussion had not yet subsided. Some people even felt that the reason why He Xinjiu was able to refine a transcendent-grade medicinal pill was probably due to a gap in the pill refining furnace. Therefore, not long after, Towering Sky Continent's southern continent began to become popular with a pill refining furnace with a gap. As the sky gradually turned dark, the host announced that the competition for today was over and that the competition would continue the next day. The crowd dispersed and He Xinjiu returned to the East Phoenix Country's base. Naturally, she was blindly worshipped by Prime Minister Sima and the others. At this moment, in the eyes of the people of the East Phoenix Country, their empress was simply omnipotent. As long as their empress wanted to, she could even get her hands on Wu Yun, much less anything else. Whoever went against their empress would be courting death. Alright, Empress Jio had successfully developed her subjects into her hardcore fans. After dinner, just as He Xinjiu was about to say something, a certain someone said with a slightly gloomy face, "You should have a good competition when you are competing. Why are you always playing tricks? Aren't you afraid of making things worse?" He Xinjiu looked aggrieved. "I'm not playing tricks. I really don't know the formula of the 9 transformation breaking Yuden." A certain someone snorted coldly. "What about eating fruits and cracking melon seeds?" He Xinjiu touched her nose guiltily. "This isn't considered a trick, right? I'm just killing time. Those people are too weak. If I do my best, I'll beat them until they have nothing left to live for." A certain someone, "Don't participate in the next competition. You've achieved your goal anyway. It's not necessarily a good thing to be in the limelight," a certain someone said in a deep voice. Although He Xinjiu looked reluctant, she could only say when she saw the gloomy expression of a certain someone, "Alright, if you don't want to participate, then don't. I'm happy to be at ease." The next morning, the talisman competition was the first to be held. Although He Xinjiu's hand was itchy, she didn't go on stage to compete. Instead, she played with a certain someone's finger casually. This guy looked at a certain finger with distinct joints and cursed in his heart. Damn it, it was really unfair. It was fine that the gigolo was good-looking, but why was his hand so good-looking? Fortunately, she made the first move and got the gigolo. Otherwise, who knew which little vixen would benefit from it? This guy suddenly remembered something. The seal of the gigolo was broken bit by bit. Would there be a fiancé or something like a white lotus in the future? He Xinjiu suddenly felt uncomfortable when she thought of this. She took out D. Biming's voice transmission talisman and asked, "Prince Charming, will there be a fiancé or something like that when you remove the seal in the future?" A certain being felt the vibration of the voice transmission talisman. When he saw that it was sent by He Xinjiu, he could not help but be speechless. She was clearly right beside him, yet she was still sending out the voice transmission talisman. Was she bored? A certain being sent his spiritual sense in. When he heard He Xinjiu's words, his face could not help but stiffen. Why did she think of such a weird question when she was just watching the competition? Although a certain being did not want to pay attention to her, when he saw that she was looking at him with puppy-like wet eyes, he could only use his spiritual sense to say, "No, I was not interested in women in the past." Hearing the words of a certain someone, He Xinjiu felt relieved at first, then her eyes revealed a gossipy light. Was she not interested in women? Could it be that the gigolo liked men in the past? Although a certain someone didn't know what this guy was thinking, he knew that she was not thinking of anything good when he saw her sinister smile. A certain someone frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "I have no intention of starting a family in the past, so you don't have to worry about my fiancé or anything like that after I unseal it, because you are the only exception." Hei Shinjio was stunned, and then a trace of sweetness rose in her heart. She picked up a certain someone's hand and kissed it. Prime Minister Sima coincidentally saw this scene. The old man was so embarrassed that his face turned red. "Io, His Majesty is too unrestrained. His Majesty, this is under the eyes of everyone. No matter how fierce you are, you have to be careful." He forced himself to look at the competition stage so as not to be scared by His Majesty's shamelessness. At this moment, the talisman seal competition on the competition stage was ongoing. The time limit was still 4 hours. The prescribed topic was the level 20,000 feet Earth Shield Talisman. The final result was calculated by the number and quality of the talisman seals. The 3 contestants from the Lihen Palace were the fastest. They had each completed 1,000 feet Earth Shield Talisman. The remaining 9 countries were all about the same speed. However, Prime Minister Sima knew that their East Phoenix country's talisman-making skills were slightly weaker than the other countries. This round of talisman-making competition would most likely be at the bottom. Thinking of this, the old man could not help but look at Empress Jiao, who was throwing dog food at him. His Majesty clearly had a super talent in talisman-making, so why didn't he participate in this round of talisman-making competition? Could it be that he wanted to get intimate with young Master D? He really only loved handsome men and didn't love the country. Hei Shinjio saw that a certain someone's face was a little pale and knew that she had probably loosened the seal on the gigolo again. This guy could only let go of a certain someone's hand in embarrassment. This guy was really helpless in his heart. She didn't do anything. Wasn't it just a few kisses on the gigolo's hand? Wasn't it just a few flirtatious glances? Why did the seal loosen? The gigolo's self-control was really getting worse and worse. If a certain someone knew what this guy was thinking, he would probably strangle her to death. Hei Shinjio could no longer be intimate with a certain someone, so she could only look at the competition stage. She had never drawn a level 20,000 feet Earth Shield Talisman before, but when she was looking for a prescription yesterday, she took a glance at it. She estimated that she could easily draw a transcendent grade talisman. It was a pity that the pretty boy did not allow her to go on stage. Her talent could only be covered in dust. 4 hours later, the talisman competition ended. The final result was as everyone had expected. 3 contestants from the Lihen Palace had once again taken the top 3 spots, and 3 contestants from the East Phoenix Kingdom had tragically won the last 3 spots. Emperor Jinglai and the others looked at Empress Jiao with gloating expressions. However, they didn't dare to say anything because of a certain someone. They only used their expressions to express their disdain. Hei Shinjio was so angry. Fuck, if it weren't for the pretty boy stopping her, she would have used her results to torture these scum to death. Just as Hei Shinjio was fuming with anger, she heard a contestant from the Lihen Palace on the competition stage say arrogantly, "It's not that I Zhuiji don't speak well. It's just that your 9 nations are really too terrible. Especially the East Phoenix country. The total points of the 3 of them combined are not even greater than mine alone. It's simply ridiculous." The faces of the 3 East Phoenix countries contestants turned red, especially the face of one of the men. When he was making talismans, he might have been too nervous. The first few talismans could not be successfully drawn, and in the end he only managed to draw 2 talismans. That was why the East Feng Kingdom's points were so ugly. Zhuiji saw the expressions of the 3 contestants from the East Feng Kingdom and could not help but feel even more proud. Isn't your East Feng Kingdom's female Emperor of Zephyr very powerful? Why didn't she participate in the talisman-making competition this time? In my opinion, yesterday's alchemy competition was just a blind cat meeting a dead rat. Your East Feng Kingdom is just a bunch of trash. Hei Shinjio was already filled with anger, but when she heard Zhu Yizi's words, her small face instantly darkened. Damn it, she had originally planned to keep a low profile, but now it seemed that some people really deserved a beating. Hei Shinjio suddenly stood up and instantly, everyone's gazes turned to her. She sneered, "Zhuiji? A pig? Your name really matches your name. The Lihen Palace has always taken good care of our 9 nations, and we have always respected the Lihen Palace. I didn't expect that you didn't take our 9 nations seriously at all. I am, after all, the monarch of the East Phoenix Kingdom, and you have been slandering me on the stage. It seems that our 9 nations don't have any status in the eyes of the Lihen Palace, which is really disappointing." Emperor Jinglai and the others were actually feeling very uncomfortable. The people of the hateful palace were too arrogant. The fox mourns the death of the hare. If the hateful palace could treat the female emperor like this, their situation would probably not be any better when the East Phoenix Kingdom was destroyed in the future. Zhu Yixi's face immediately turned pale. Although the hateful palace indeed looked down on the 9 kingdoms, there were some things that could not be said openly. He rolled his eyes. He tried to explain, "Your Majesty Fenghua, you have misunderstood what I meant. What I said just now was only directed at the talisman-making competition. The truth is right here. Your East Phoenix country's talisman-making results are really a little shabby. Don't tell me that you won't allow others to say it?" Everyone knew that Zhu Yiji was secretly changing the concept and twisting the facts, but no one made a sound because no one was willing to provoke the Lihen Palace. Yun Chuzhou coldly glanced at Zhu Yiji, who was fearless, and said indifferently, "Oh? Only for the talisman-making competition? Then if my talisman-making skills are better than yours, does it matter if I kill you?" Zhu Yiji didn't expect Yun Chuzhou to say such a thing. He immediately became unable to back down. If he didn't agree, then what he said before was a slap to his face. If he agreed, what if the female emperor of Fenghua really defeated him? Wouldn't his life be in danger? Before he could decide whether to agree or not, Yun Chuzhou had already leaped onto the stage and said with a sneer, "Didn't you just say that I was a blind cat that met a dead rat? What? Are you even worse than a dead rat?" Zhu Yiji was provoked by He Xingjiu and couldn't hold back. He thought to himself that he had never heard that the Zephyr female emperor knew how to make talismans. She was probably just trying to scare him. Moreover, he still had a trump card. Even if the Zephyr female emperor was very good at making talismans, she wouldn't be a match for him. Zhu Yiji thought of this and his expression became arrogant again. "Alright, since Her Majesty wants to compete, I'll play along. However, the content of our competition isn't a level 20,000 feet Earth Shield talisman, but a level 23 Heaven-Shaking Explosive talisman. Does Her Majesty Fenghua dare to compete?" The crowd below the stage immediately burst into a clamor as they discussed animatedly. A level 23 Heaven-Shaking Explosive talisman? Isn't this grade a little too high? Most people probably haven't even seen it before, let alone drawing it. That's right, even in places that specialize in selling talismans, it's very difficult to find a level 23 Heaven-Shaking Explosive talisman. This is a talisman master's most prized treasure. Female Emperor Zephyr is going to fall for this. She definitely won't dare to agree because she will definitely lose. He Xingjiu's heart felt like it was going to explode. Among the books that Prime Minister Sima had collected for her, the highest level of talismans was only level 21. She had never seen a heaven-shaking explosive talisman before, let alone know how to draw one. He Xingjiu was very melancholic in her heart. Just accept it. She didn't know how to draw a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman, but if she didn't accept it, wouldn't it be a slap to her own face? If she just rolled back to the viewing platform in dejection, how would she continue to survive in the future? How would she still be able to show off in front of the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom in the future? Zhu Yiji saw that He Xingjiu was silent for a long while and his face revealed a smug expression. Why? Does Her Majesty Fenghua not dare to accept the challenge? So, it seems like what I said before was right. At least in terms of talisman-making techniques, your East Phoenix Kingdom is all trash. A stern look flashed across He Xingjiu's eyes. This Zhu Yiji deserved to die. She curled the corners of her lips. Who said that I don't dare to accept you? I just want you to live a little longer. Since you want to die so badly, I will accept it now. Zhu Yiji curled his lips. He was certain that Yun Chuzhou was trying to put on an act because very few people knew about the drawing of the level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. He had only learned it by chance, so this female emperor of Zephyr was definitely going to lose? The host was dumbfounded. Was she really going to compete? Just as he was at a loss, an elder from the Lihen Palace walked down the stage and nodded at him, indicating that their palace master had agreed to the competition. Hence, the host said, the time limit is 4 hours. The content of the competition is the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. The final result will be calculated based on the quantity and quality of the completed talisman. The competition will begin now. Yun Chuzhou stood behind her own operating table. Although she looked indifferent on the surface, her heart was like an ant on a hot pan. What the hell? What should she do? She did not know how to draw the heaven-shaking explosive talisman at all. Moreover, there was no such thing as the heaven-shaking explosive talisman in the world. How could she know the drawing method of this heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Previously, the Heavenly Tao Cliff had given her a talisman seal inheritance. Unfortunately, it was a heaven-grade talisman seal, and there was no such low-level talisman seal drawing technique as the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. At this moment, Zhu Yizhi had already started drawing the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. He looked very nervous, afraid that he would fail if there was even the slightest mistake. When the audience below the stage saw that He Xingjiu was still standing there calmly, with no intention to start drawing at all, someone curled his lips and said, "This female emperor of Zephyr Nation definitely doesn't know how to draw. If that's the case, why did she bring up the competition? Isn't this slapping herself in the face?" "That's right. The East Phoenix country's results aren't good to begin with. Don't tell me that others aren't allowed to say it. This female emperor of Zephyr Nation is really asking for trouble. In a while, if this female emperor of Zephyr Nation can't draw a single picture, won't it be very awkward? Therefore, people should be self-aware so as to avoid embarrassing themselves." When the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom heard their words, they were immediately filled with righteous indignation and refuted with full confidence, "Pooey. Don't spout nonsense. Our Majesty is omnipotent. What's a mere heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Our Majesty will draw 10 or 8 pieces and smash that pig to death. Right, Our Majesty will definitely win. Our Majesty has never failed before. In a while we will let you know how powerful Our Majesty is." Exactly. The reason why His Majesty hasn't started drawing yet is to show His grace. Let the pig draw a few pictures first, and then His Majesty will draw again so that he will be convinced of his defeat. He Xingjiu pricked up her ears to hear the words of her brain-dead fan, and her heart felt like a beeping dog. Where did their confidence come from? She really didn't know how to draw this time. First, let that Zhu Yizhi draw to show his grace? Grace my ass. She was the one who didn't know how to draw. Just as He Xingjiu was cursing in her heart, a thought came to her mind. That's right. Let that Zhu Yizhi draw a picture first. Wouldn't she be able to learn how to draw? However, she and that Zhu Yizhi were arranged at both ends of the competition stage. Even if she stretched her neck, she wouldn't be able to see the contents of Zhu Yizi's drawing. This fellow blinked his eyes and left his operating table with his hands behind his back. He walked in front of Zhu Yizi's operating table and shamelessly stole a picture. However, Zhu Yizhi didn't know the true purpose of this fellow. After all, learning and selling the talisman on the spot wasn't suitable for talismans. Even the most talented person wouldn't be able to learn it after reading it once. Furthermore, this was a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. Zhu Yizhi felt that Yun Chujiu wanted to disturb him while he was making the talisman. He sneered in his heart. He had always been very calm. Not to mention the female emperor of Zephyr who was watching from the side. Even if she made a big fuss, she wouldn't be able to affect him. The onlookers had the same thoughts as Zhu Yizhi. They couldn't help but scoff. This female emperor of Zephyr Nation didn't know how to draw, so she went to disturb Zhu Yizi's talisman making. She was really wicked. The brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom said excitedly, "See? Our Majesty is really too smart. This is called strategy. What do you know? Your Majesty, you can't just stand there like this. If you scold that Zhu Yizhi a little, he won't be able to complete the talisman making. Right, Your Majesty, why don't you shout a few times to scare him to death? Empress Jiu, her subjects were most likely led astray by her, right?" He Xingjiu ridiculed in her heart as she watched Zhu Yizi's talisman-making process. This level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman was indeed very complicated. Beads of sweat were already oozing out from Zhu Yizi's forehead. Clearly he was having a hard time. Almost an hour had passed, and Zhu Yizhi had finally completed a heaven-shaking explosive talisman. However, it was only a low-grade one. Zhu Yizhi wiped the sweat on his forehead and glanced at He Xingjiu in disdain. He snorted and said, "Do you think that you will affect me by distracting me like this? Dream on." He Xingjiu curled her lips. "Distract you? I just want to see how good you are. If I wanted to cause trouble, I wouldn't have been so quiet. Now it seems that your level is really not good. You spent a long time to draw a low-grade talisman. You are really stupid and stupid." Just as Zhu Yizhi was about to retort, he saw Empress Jiu jump back to her control panel with a whoosh. He could only snort coldly and continue to draw the talisman. After He Xingjiu returned to her control panel, she took out the talisman brush and started to draw the talisman. After a quarter of an hour, He Xingjiu casually placed the completed talisman aside and continued to draw. The people below the stage were very curious. How did the Zephyr female emperor finish drawing a shocking explosive talisman so quickly? How was this possible? Many people guessed that the talisman drawn by the Zephyr female emperor was definitely not a shocking explosive talisman. Perhaps it was some low-level talisman. After all, it took Zhu Yizhi almost an hour to finish drawing one. How could she finish it so quickly? He Xingjiu drew 5 talismans and put away the talisman pen calmly. Then she took out the recliner and sat on it, munching on melon seeds. The audience felt that Yun Chujiu did not know how to draw the heaven-shaking explosive talisman at all. She only drew 5 talismans randomly to deal with it. This time she really slapped herself in the face. Zhu Yizhi used the corner of his eye to glance at He Xingjiu leisurely munching on melon seeds. He couldn't help but twitch his lips. It seemed that this female emperor of Zephyr had given up completely. Finally, the 4-hour deadline came to an end. The host quickly announced Zhu Yizi's results. Li Hen Palace's Zhu Yizhi has successfully drawn 4 heaven-shaking explosive talismans, 2 of which are low-grade, 2 of which are middle-grade and 10 points. The crowd below the stage cried out in surprise. Although it sounded like the quality of the talismans wasn't high, one had to know that these were level 23 talismans. 4 of them had all been successfully drawn, and 2 of them were middle-grade talismans. This was already very impressive. At this moment, everyone was certain that Zhu Yizhi had won. As for the female emperor of Zephyr, although she had drawn several talismans, they were definitely other low-grade talismans. Her points would definitely be 0. Although those brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom were still bragging, they were more or less panicking in their hearts. Were the talismans drawn by their majesty earth-shattering explosive talismans? Would their majesty fail miserably this time? He Xingjiu put away the melon seeds and the reclining chair. Then she calmly looked at the judges and hosts who were walking over and slowly said, "He only has 10 points? It seems that I have overestimated him. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have drawn 5. I would have just drawn 3. The corners of the judges and hosts' eyes twitched. Just draw 3? She really dared to say that. If drawing 3 exceeded Zhu Yizi's points, then she would have drawn at least 1 upper grade and 2 middle grade. Was she talking nonsense? However, when they saw the 5 talismans on He Xingjiu's table, they were all dumbfounded. After a long while, the host announced loudly, "The glorious female emperor of the East Phoenix country has successfully drawn 5 heaven-shaking explosive talismans. They are all upper-grade talismans with 25 points." After the host finished speaking, the audience fell silent. It was obvious that they had not reacted in time. However, it was immediately followed by an uproar. This was especially true for the hardcore fans of the East Phone Kingdom. Their faces were flushed red, and they wanted nothing more than to roar to express the excitement in their hearts. Ah! Did you see that? Her Majesty Fenghua is indeed worthy of being the peerless female emperor who can topple kingdoms and cities. Who can be more powerful than Her Majesty? Who else? Who else? Once Her Majesty makes a move, who else can compete with her? That pig said that our emperor is a blind cat who met a dead rat? Pui. He is a short-sighted fool. He has no right to talk about our emperor. Zhu Yizhi did not believe the host's words at all. He staggered to He Xingjiu's operating table and saw the impeccable 5 talismans on it. He immediately sat down on the ground. He had lost, completely lost. He Xingjiu looked at him contemptuously and said indifferently, "He'll give you 2 paths. One path is to kneel down and apologize to the 9 countries, especially the subjects of the East Phoenix country. The second path is to die." Zhu Yizi's face was pale and his body was soaked in cold sweat. He turned his gaze to the Li Hate Palace's stands for help. Yun Chujiu snorted coldly. "What? Do you think the palace master of the Li Hate Palace will plead for you? Your vicious words have already destroyed the relationship between the Li Hate Palace and the 9 countries. How can the Li Hate Palace protect you? Hurry up and choose a path. I'm still in a hurry to eat lunch. I don't have the time to waste here with you." Zhu Yizhi saw that no one from the Li Hate Palace had made an appearance and knew that he had already been abandoned. Naturally, he would not apologize. If that was the case, he would not be able to survive in the Li Hate Palace in the future. He decided to forcefully leave. He did not believe that the female emperor of Zephyr could really kill him in front of everyone. Moreover, even if she really dared to kill him, she was not his match. Thinking of this, Zhu Yizhi jumped off the stage and prepared to return to the stands of the Li Hate Palace. He didn't believe that the female emperor of Zephyr would be able to chase him to the stands of the Li Hate Palace. He Xingjiu was clearly dumbfounded. She didn't expect that Zhu Yizhi would be so shameless. Was he planning to run away? The crowd below the stage also didn't expect such a result. For a moment, they stared blankly at Zhu Yizhi as he walked towards the stands of the Lihate Palace. At this moment, someone saw a ray of light shoot towards Zhu Yizhi. Immediately after, they heard Zhu Yizi's miserable cry and then fell to the ground. He had actually died. Those who were close to Zhu Yizhi discovered that there was a crystal-clear ice arrow stuck between Zhu Yizi's brows. Oh, who did this? Although most people did not know who had killed Zhu Yizhi, Emperor Jinglai and the others saw it clearly. All of them kept quiet out of fear. Oh God. Fortunately, they didn't offend the little girl and her fiancé. Otherwise, this fiend would have taken their lives with a raise of his hand? He was too powerful. He Xingjiu saw that Zhu Yizhi was already dead. Naturally, this guy knew that it was Di Biming who did it. However, this guy took the opportunity and said, "Did you all see that? This Zhu Yizhi has already lost, but he doesn't admit it. Therefore he has been punished by the heavens. Therefore you must keep your promises in the future, or you will be struck by lightning." Boom. A bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck Zhu Yizi's body. He Xingjiu, everyone, He Xingjiu looked up at the sky. There were no clouds in the sky and the sky was clear as water. It was as if the lightning just now was an illusion. Oh my God, did her jinx skill resurface? The onlookers looked at He Xingjiu with fear. They had heard that the Zephyr Queen was the messenger of the divine phoenix. Now that they looked at her, she was indeed extraordinary. That Zhu Yizhi died because he did not keep his promise. He was struck by lightning after he died. How tragic. It seemed that it was better for them not to offend this female emperor of Zephyr in the future. Otherwise, they would either be shot to death by an ice arrow or be struck to death by lightning. Seeing this, Empress Jiu was very pleased with herself. She said to the dumbfounded host, "Don't forget to add my results to the total score of our East Phoenix Seal competition." Panda N0V won the host. "Is it really good for you to be so shameless? Do you think the other 8 countries are all fools?" Seeing that he didn't say anything, He Xingjiu curled the corners of her lips. "Why? Are you afraid that the other 8 countries will have an opinion? Your Majesty Jinglai, do you have an opinion?" Emperor Jinglai and the others shook their heads like rattledrums. What a joke. How could they dare to have an opinion? That fiend was sitting right next to them. If they had any objections, it might have directly taken their lives. Seeing that Jinglai Di and the others had no objections, the host looked in the direction of the spectators' stand of the Lihate Palace. Seeing that no one had any objections, he announced the results again. Because the East Phoenix Kingdom had additional points, they were immediately ranked ahead of the other 8 kingdoms. He Xingjiu returned to her seat in satisfaction. She hugged a certain someone's arm affectionately and said, "Prince Charming, I've realized that you're becoming more and more handsome. I'm going to love you to death. Prince Charming, although I've only been away for a short while, I've missed you so much. I've missed you so much." The corners of Jing Lidi and the others' mouths twitched. This girl was really thick-skinned to say such mushy words in public. A certain venerable hummed in agreement and then moved He Xingjiu's claws away, because his little heart started beating violently again, and the seal began to loosen again. A certain venerable thought that He Xingjiu would definitely pout to express her dissatisfaction, but he didn't expect He Xingjiu to say thoughtlessly, "I'm starving to death. It's finally time for lunch. Hurry up, let's eat." A certain someone. After lunch, the beast taming competition began. He Xingjiu had already been in the limelight twice. She was prepared to listen to a certain someone and keep a low profile. Therefore, she obediently sat on the spectator stand and watched the competition. On the competition stage there was a huge iron cage. Inside there was a level 59 blazing red-tailed female wolf and a wolf cub, Lai Yan. The rules of the competition were also very simple. The contestant who could make the female wolf voluntarily hand over the wolf cub to him would be considered to have won the competition. Everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. This was too difficult. As everyone knew, the female wolf loved her cub very much. If they didn't have a cub, they might still have a glimmer of hope to contract the female wolf. However, in order to protect her cub from harm, it was impossible for the female wolf to take the initiative to establish a spiritual connection with someone, let alone hand over the cub. It was likely that none of the contestants on the competition stage would succeed. As expected, the contestants on the competition stage tried all kinds of methods of coercion and enticement, but they were unable to make the female wolf hand over her cubs. Those contestants also gave up. Since no one had succeeded, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. He Xingjiu curled her lips. What a bunch of trash. The pretty boy did not allow her to go on stage. Otherwise, he would have asked the female wolf to hand over the wolf cub at any moment. Just as this guy was thinking, he heard the crowd exclaim. She raised her head and looked up at the competition stage. She saw the 3 contestants from the Lihate Palace placing dry firewood around the cage. They were actually going to light a fire to force the female wolf to hand over the wolf cub. The wolf cub was very afraid of the smoke. If it was not done properly, its eyes would be blinded by the smoke. The crowd shook their heads. Although this didn't violate the rules, since the female wolf had to hand over the wolf cub in order to protect the wolf cub's eyes, it was still a little too cruel. However, Jing Lidi and the others had a different feeling in their hearts. They felt that the Lihan Palace had set up this topic to shock them. The subtext was nothing more than that the Lihan Palace had many ways to force them to submit obediently. They didn't want to be forced to do things the hard way. It could also be understood that the hateful palace would use their children to force them. He Xingjiu blinked her eyes and looked at the expressions of Jing Lidi and the others. She could roughly guess what they were thinking, so she stood up. She shouted coldly, "Stop! Aren't you guys being too wicked by doing this? Although they are demonic beasts, it is a mother's nature for a female wolf to protect her cubs. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for doing this?" Boom. A bolt of lightning struck the arena and struck the Lihate Palace contestant who was about to light the fire. "Hey Xingjiu, Io? Did she open her mouth today?" The Lihate Palace contestant who had been struck by the lightning did not suffer any injuries, but she was extremely frightened. No matter who was struck by the lightning, they would still be scared, alright? Thus, for a moment, the 3 Lihate Palace contestants looked at each other, but none of them dared to light a fire. At this moment, the female wolf in the cage howled, but her gaze was directed in He Xingjiu's direction. He Xingjiu was so smart. She immediately understood that the female wolf was going to hand over the wolf cub to her, so she suppressed the excitement in her heart. She calmly asked, "Are you going to hand over the wolf cub to me? If you are, you can call out once. If not, you can call out twice." "Howl?" the female wolf called out. He Xingjiu immediately smiled until her eyes curved. She jumped onto the competition stage and shamelessly put the female wolf, the wolf cub, and the cage into the spirit beast bag. Then she spread her hands to the host. "Did you see that? The female wolf chose to hand over the wolf cub to me, so you can count the points on our East Phoenix country. You can all leave now." The host, everyone, this was too fucking mysterious, right? The beast taming competition ended just like that? Was this the female emperor of Zephyr taking advantage of them just like that? She had only smacked her lips a few times, and she had turned from a spectator into the champion? Emperor Jinglai and the others counted with their fingers. Apart from the array competition, the other 3 competitions had actually all been won by the East Phoenix Kingdom. They had previously boasted shamelessly that the East Phoenix Kingdom was the weakest, but now, their faces were hurting. Now, only the armament refining and spirit power competition was left. No matter what, they could not let the East Phoenix Kingdom go, or else that little girl would have to fly into the sky. As the sky was already dark, the host announced that the competition for the day had ended and that the next day would continue. Thus, everyone returned to their respective encampments. After He Xingjiu finished her dinner, she began to draw the shocking explosive talisman that she had just learned today without stopping. This fellow was afraid that Lihen Palace would make trouble after the grand meeting tomorrow, so it was better to make more preparations. He Xingjiu wished that she could have a few more claws so that she could draw a few more. Moreover, she could continue to sharpen her cloud fishing hook. On the other hand, a certain venerable had an indifferent expression. His current situation was much better than when he had been hunted down by the 9 pavilions. He was completely confident that he could protect the little rascal, not to mention that the other 8 countries would most likely choose to ally with the East Phoenix Kingdom. The next day, during the artifact refining competition, He Xingjiu was incomparably well behaved. Because this fellow was not good at it, she had no way of showing off. In the end, it was still the Lihen Palace that obtained the first place, the Hao Heavenly Kingdom that obtained the second place, and the East Phoenix Kingdom that steadily obtained the last place. Emperor Jinglai and the others heaved a sigh of relief. As long as that girl did not participate, the East Phoenix Kingdom would definitely obtain the last place. After lunch, the final competition of the Spirit Stone Convention was also the highlight of the finale. What everyone did not expect was that the Lihen Palace did not send any participants to participate in the Spirit Power competition. Although everyone was somewhat puzzled, they did not have the time to think about it. This was because they were all attracted by the exciting duels on the competition stage. The spirit power competition was a drawing of lots to determine the winner. After an intense competition, 3 winners were finally decided. Of course, none of them were from the East Phoenix Kingdom. The subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom didn't feel ashamed, but instead felt proud because their emperor didn't go up. Their emperor must have been afraid that she would participate again, so he took all the first place. How could people from other countries live like this? Hei Shinjio touched her nose guiltily when she heard the discussions of the brainless fans. This other competition was fine, but this spiritual power competition, she could not do it. After all, she was only at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm, and the people competing on the stage were mostly cultivators at the 4th or 5th level of the spirit transformation realm. Unless she was playing dirty, she would not be able to beat them. When everyone thought that the final 3 winners would draw lots for a duel, they didn't expect the host to say, "The final 3 rankings will be decided by challenging the 10-sided 9-Earth Heavenly Fiend formation." 10-sided 9-Earth Heavenly Fiend formation? Everyone was somewhat at a loss. They had never heard of such a formation. Moreover, wasn't this a competition of spiritual power? Why did they still need to challenge the formation? Just as everyone was in a daze, they saw about 100 children jump onto the competition stage. Then they stood in their respective positions and formed seals. After that, the array was formed. The crowd cried out in alarm. Someone recognized these children. They were the inner palace disciples that the Lihate Palace had chosen not long ago. Someone called out the names of those children loudly. Unfortunately, those children had a cold expression on their faces, as if they hadn't heard anything. Emperor Jinglai and the others felt a buzzing sound in their heads. They finally knew the purpose of the Lihan Palace holding this Spirit Stone convention. This was a threat, a direct threat. No wonder, although the Lihan Palace recruited inner palace disciples once every 5 years, only a few of them remained after every round of selection. But this time, a total of 100 children were left behind. Originally, the various countries were still rejoicing, but they did not expect that the reason why the Lihate Palace had left behind so many children was to threaten them. Hei Xinjia's eyes flashed. She had already understood that although the Lihate Palace would select some children from the 9 countries to work in the Lihate Palace, the number was extremely small. It was probably because they were afraid of betraying the Lihate Palace. Then the question came. Where did the people from the Lihate Palace come from? The answer was obvious. They were definitely from the 9 pavilions. They were all from the northern continent. No wonder the Lihate Palace's spiritual power and alchemy were stronger than the 9 nations. This was because even if the people from the northern continent were limited in their spiritual power when they arrived in the southern continent, they would still be higher than the average person. Then, what was the Lihate Palace's purpose in having these children set up the 10-directional 9-Earth Heaven Fiend array? Those children had clearly forgotten what had happened before and had become a killing machine loyal to the Lihate Palace. To use the safety of these children to threaten the emperors of the various countries? It was not to the extent. After all, there were only 100 children. How much could they threaten? It was likely that the final goal of the Lihate Palace was to intimidate them. As long as the Lihate Palace wanted to, they could turn the people of the 9 nations into puppets at any time. Just as Hei Shinjio was deep in thought, the host spoke again. The 3 contestants who can last the longest in the array formation will be the final winner. Although the 3 contestants on the stage were a little surprised to see these children, they still revealed contemptuous expressions when they heard the host's words. Most of these children's spiritual power was only at the level of spirit illusion, although there were many of them. To them it was just a piece of cake. Not to mention staying inside for a while, even breaking this array formation was very easy. Thus, one of the contestants casually entered the array formation through the life gate. However, when the array formation was activated, it was as if he was in purgatory. His surroundings were filled with a terrifying murderous aura. Let alone breaking the array formation, he would probably lose his life if he stayed for a while longer. He shouted in fear, "Let me out! Let me out! I admit defeat." However, those children did not open the door to life. They waved their hands non-stop, and everyone watched helplessly as that contestant bled to death in the formation. Everyone was in an uproar. What shocked them was not the death of that contestant, but the ruthlessness and indifference of those children. They had completely forgotten their parents and relatives, forgotten the honor and disgrace of their country. They had completely become the minions of the Lihate Palace. The remaining 2 contestants looked at each other and saw the intention to retreat in each other's eyes. It was just a competition. They didn't want to lose their lives, so they all expressed their abstentions. The host was suddenly in a difficult position. With 1 dead and 2 abstentions, would the first place in the spirit energy competition be vacant? At this moment, a clear voice said, "Host, I am here to challenge the 10 Directions 9 Earth Heaven Carnage array. If I break this array, will the first place in this spirit energy competition be given to our East Phoenix country?" Everyone followed the voice and looked over. The person who spoke was none other than the female emperor of Fenghua. This time, even the hardcore fans of East Phoenix country felt that their majesty was taking too much of a risk. That 10-directional 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend formation was clearly a little strange. If they were to enter, wouldn't they be courting death? Prime Minister Sima looked at a certain majesty with teary eyes, hoping that D. Biming would be able to stop their unreliable majesty. However, the certain emperor's expression was indifferent, showing no intention of stopping him. Prime Minister Sima was furious. Their emperor had already given birth to a child for him, and now he actually did not care about their emperor's life and death. What a heartbreaker. Just as the MC was unsure if he should agree to He Xinjia's request, an elder from the Lihen Palace walked up to the stage and nodded at him. Hence, the MC then said, "Yes, Your Majesty Fenghua, please come up to the stage." He Xinjio slowly walked up to the stage and did not immediately enter the 10 Directions 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend array. Instead, she stretched out her claws and poked the little faces of the children beside her. The children dodged her claws impatiently and glared at her fiercely. He Xinjio did not mind and continued to poke at the children's little faces. The host could not stand it anymore and coughed dryly, "Your Majesty Fenghua, shouldn't you enter the array formation? What's the rush? These children are all children of our 9 nations. Can't we be close to them?" The corners of the host's eyes twitched. Close to them? Poke their little faces? I've never seen anyone so close to them. After poking the little faces of more than 10 children, He Xinjio narrowed her eyes. Guai Chao had basically determined the condition of these children. They were poisoned. Not only would it make these children forget what had happened before, but it would also greatly increase their spiritual energy in a short period of time. The consequence of doing so was that these children would become cold-blooded and bloodthirsty in the future, and their lifespans would be very short. What the Lihen Palace did was really not human. Although the Guai Chao had determined the symptoms of these children, as the Guai Chao could not speak, He Xinjio could only rely on guesses to communicate with it. It would still take some time before she could formulate an antidote. He Xinjio rubbed her chin and thought for a moment. Some of the symptoms of these children were similar to amnesia. If she stimulated them with something that they had a deep memory of, perhaps they would regain their memories. Moreover, the closer it was to the time when they consumed the poison, the more effective it would be. He Xinjia's gaze fell on the 10 children standing in the southeast corner. Her eyes revealed a gaze like that of a big bad wolf. It was them. The children standing in the southeast corner shivered when they saw He Xinjio looking at them. Why did the smile of the female emperor of Zephyr look so familiar? He Xinjio thought of a countermeasure and said with a smile, "Come, little babies, open the life gate and let me in. I'm so beautiful, you must show mercy. Don't kill me." The audience couldn't help but frown. The Zephyr female emperor was probably not very clear-headed. Although these children were young, they had already become killing machines. It was like casting pearls before swine to tell them this. The children opened the gap in the array and He Xinjio strolled in. However, as she walked in, she sang, "The king asked me to patrol the mountain and catch a monk for dinner. The water in this mountain stream is extremely sweet." Everyone was dumbfounded. This female emperor of Zephyr must have gone crazy. She was still singing at this time? Besides, what nonsense was she singing? What did she mean by capturing a monk for dinner? Did she still want to eat people? As she sang, she took out a whip and swung it. She didn't look like she was going in to break into the formation, but more like she was going to herd sheep. What the crowd didn't notice was that the 10 children standing in the southeast corner couldn't help but tremble when they heard He Xinjia's song and the sound of the whip. Especially one of the taller and stronger children and the other one with delicate features. Their faces were full of fear and some scenes flashed through their minds. A little girl was waving the whip and instructing them to do this and that, whipping them whenever there was a disagreement. Along with these scenes, some familiar people and scenes flashed through their minds again. They could not help but hug their heads and crouch on the ground in pain, wailing in agony. He Xinjio shrugged her shoulders. She had only sang once and it was already effective? Xiao Hanio in the spirit beast pouch silently complained. Even if these children had been poisoned and lost their memories, they were easily reminded of the past that was unbearable to recall. What did this mean? This meant that Master Hexan had clearly become a nightmare for those children. The 10 directions 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend formation had to be formed by 100 children. If 10 of them were in trouble, the formation would naturally be unable to take effect. Therefore Heishinjo relied on a song to break the formation. The people below the stage were completely dumbfounded. This worked? Breaking the formation with a few strokes of the whip after singing a song? Was this a joke? Heishinjo walked to the 10 children in the southeast corner. She said indifferently, "Have you remembered something now? I'm the female emperor of the Juntian kingdom. If you want to go home, I can take you back." Although the children hadn't completely remembered something, they remembered their parents at home and the poison they drank. They immediately burst into tears. "We were fed with poison, so we don't remember anything. Your Majesty, save us. Save us." Sob, sob, "I miss my mother. I don't want to enter the palace of hatred anymore. It's full of demons. They have been making us kill people. If we don't listen, they will stab us with knives and burn us with iron. I want to go home. Sob, sob, I want to go home." When the other children heard the words of these 10 children, their faces revealed a confused and pained expression. It was obvious that they had also thought of a few things. Yun Chujia's gaze suddenly became fierce as she looked at Emperor Jinglai and the others. "As the emperors of the 8 nations, do you still have to endure the abuse of the children under your rule by the Lihen Palace?" When Emperor Jinglai and the others heard those children's words, their hearts were already filled with anger. Now that they heard Empress Jio's questioning, the 8 of them stood up at the same time and looked in the direction of the Lihen Palace Master. The Lihen Palace Master frowned slightly. The plan had originally been very thorough, but now the matter had completely deviated from the original expectations. However, he was confident that these monarchs would not dare to fall out with the Lihen Palace in public. After all, the Lihen Palace had a strong reputation, and there were many imperial advisors sent by the Lihen Palace among the various countries. The Lihen Palace Master said indifferently, "I will thoroughly investigate this matter and give an explanation to your 9 countries. You can take these children back." When Emperor Jinglai and the others heard the Lihen Palace Master's words, they immediately became terrified. They sat back in their seats embarrassedly as if nothing had happened. Heishinjo had long expected this, so she only snorted coldly and said to the 10 devilish children in the southeast corner, "Let's go. They'll bring you home." The 10 devilish children immediately wiped their tears and followed Heishinjo down the competition stage. For some reason they felt that this Emperor Fenghua was somewhat similar to that little devil. However, it had to be said that even that little devil was 100 times better than the people of the Lihen Palace. The people of the Lihen Palace were simply devils. Heishinjo handed the 10 devilish children to her subordinates and then returned to her seat. Jinglai Di and the others looked embarrassed. They knew that their actions were a little cowardly, but what could they do? The Li-Hate Palace was too powerful. If they didn't have a foolproof plan, they wouldn't dare to go against the Li-Hate Palace. The children on the competition stage had already been brought back by people from various countries. The host looked in the direction of the Li-Hate Palace in confusion. Since the competition had ended, shouldn't the final results be announced? The bad thing was that he had just counted with his fingers and realized that the East Phoenix Kingdom was probably the first place in the overall score. After all, the female Emperor of Zephyr had relied on her own strength to obtain several first places. Very soon, an elder of the Li-Hate Palace came over and indicated for him to announce the results truthfully. The host heaved a sigh of relief and quickly announced the results of the competition. The East Phoenix Kingdom was indeed the first place, and it even had several dozen points more than the second place, the Li-Hate Palace, to say nothing of the other 8 countries. The Lihen Palace was quite straightforward. As expected, they distributed the few mineral veins to the top 3 kingdoms. Among them, the East Phoenix Kingdom obtained 5 mineral veins in one go. Yun Chujio curled her lips. Did they intend to make the East Phoenix Kingdom the target of envy and jealousy, and then attack them together? In their dreams. Then the Spirit Stone Convention ended without any awkwardness. Emperor Jinglai and the others were at a loss. Hei Xinjia's ability at the Spiritual Stone Convention had tempted them, but when they thought about the terrifying strength of the Lihen Palace and the national masters in their own country, they felt that even if the 9 countries were to form an alliance, they wouldn't be able to defeat the Lihen Palace. Just as they were at a loss, the people of the Lihen Palace came to their tent and asked them about their final decision. This time they were not as polite as last time. There was a hint of threat in their words. If they made Lihen Palace unhappy, Then the imperial advisors would spread bad rumors about their royal family. They would not be able to sit firmly on the throne of emperor. Emperor Jinglai and the others were both angry and afraid. They could only agree to send troops to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom as soon as they returned to the country. After He Xingjiu heard the report from the spirit bee, the corners of her mouth curled up. The people of the Lihan Palace were really a godlike ally. At first, Emperor Jinglai and the others were still hesitant, but they forced them to rebel. However, they couldn't blame the Lihan Palace. After all, they didn't put the 9 nations in their eyes and thought that the 9 nations didn't have the courage to fight back. Unfortunately, they had overlooked one thing. When a person was in a desperate situation, they would instead burst out with unprecedented courage. He Xingjia's eyes rolled and she eagerly approached Di Biming. Prince Charming, can you help me send a message to those 8 idiots? Let them personally lead an army to attack the East Phoenix country in a few days. When Prime Minister Sima heard her words, he almost cried. Had their emperor gone mad? Shouldn't they be discussing how to stop the 8 kingdoms from forming an alliance? Why did they still ask the 8 monarchs to personally lead an army to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom? Di Biming, on the other hand, indifferently nodded his head. He knew why Yun Chuzhou asked him to deliver the letter. It was because he had the highest spiritual power. Only by delivering the letter would the people of the Lihan Palace not discover it. That night, Di Biming did as he was told and sent the note that Yun Chuzhou had written to Emperor Jinglai and the others. When Emperor Jinglai and the others saw a certain deity standing by their bed without them knowing, they were all scared out of their wits. How could they not agree? They sent a certain deity away in fear and trepidation, as if they were sending off their ancestors. The next morning, the various countries set off to leave. He Xingjiu thought that the Lihan Palace would not let her leave just like that. As expected, when they arrived at a valley that they had to walk through, the Lihan Palace surrounded the ruler and officials of the East Feng Kingdom. The leader was none other than the one who instigated Emperor Shaoxian, Elder Zhu. He Xingjiu rubbed her hands in excitement. It had been a long time since she was tortured, and she was almost suffocated to the point of turning into a mushroom. Moreover, she didn't need to hide her strength and bide her time. She could show off as much as she wanted and she could use these people to have fun. Thus, this fellow waved his hand at the people behind him. You guys don't need to do anything first. I'll go meet them. The brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom looked at each other. Although their empress had a belly full of evil tricks and was very talented in alchemy, she was only at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm after all. How could this be possible? The people of the Li Hate Palace did not even look at He Xingjiu. Did this female emperor of Zephyr really think highly of herself? If not for the palace head's strict orders to keep her alive, she would not have been killed. He Xingjiu walked to the front with her hands behind her back. She looked at the people of the Li Hate Palace and said pretentiously, "Do you want to fight one-on-one or together?" PNDNOV1. The people of the Li Hate Palace immediately burst out laughing. This female emperor of Zephyr was most likely not very smart. Elder Zhu looked at Di Biming behind Yun Chuzhou with fear. This man was the main target of their operation this time. As for the female emperor of Zephyr, she was not even worth mentioning. Since she was looking for trouble, he would grant her her wish. Elder Zhu pointed at a random person. "Zhou Hao, I'll leave him to you." "Yes, master." An ordinary-looking man walked up to Yun Chuzhou and sneered. "Female emperor of Zephyr, I advise you to surrender. Otherwise, you will suffer." He Xingjiu raised her hand and shot several bolts of lightning at the man. "Cut the crap. Don't you know that there's a saying that goes, don't talk when you can? Watch my thunder." Shui Wuji almost burst into laughter. It would have been fine if someone else had said don't talk when you can, but didn't little sister Jiu feel that she was slapping her own face by saying that? When did she not rely on her words to win a fight? This was the first time that most of the people present had seen He Xingjiu make a move. After all, this fellow had always relied on his mouth and had never used his true strength before. When those brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom saw that their majesty had actually unleashed a bolt of lightning, the crowd immediately became excited. They all pulled at their necks and cheered, "Female Emperor of Magnificence is a peerless beauty in the world. Female Emperor of the Wind and Flowers sink the fish fall the geese close the moon shame. Female Emperor of Zephyr is invincible. Your Majesty. Kill him. Your Majesty, you are the best. We support you forever." He Xingjiu heard the brainless fans shouting, suddenly more pretentious. She kept a low profile for such a long time, finally can soar to the sky. However, ideals were beautiful but reality was bone-chilling. Although this fellow's lightning was powerful, the opposite Zhou Hao's spiritual power was much higher than hers. He Xingjiu quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. The brainless fans immediately quieted down. Oh no, their majesty wouldn't be defeated, right? Zhou Hao saw that Yun Chujiu was obviously no match for her, and his face was filled with pride and disdain. This female emperor of Zephyr was just SOSO, and he thought that she would be very powerful. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw that the little girl opposite him had released a purple spirit beast piglet. He was stunned at first, then he laughed out loud. Female emperor of Zephyr, although it is rare for you to be able to summon a spirit beast, but for a spirit beast like you, haha, this is simply a joke. The hardcore fans of the East Feng Kingdom were also somewhat dumbfounded. What the hell was their majesty releasing? Wasn't their majesty's spiritual beast too weak? However, they were deeply impressed by the essence of their majesty's strategy of not losing to others. They all shouted, "Bah! What do you know? Our majesty's is a godly pig." Exactly. Don't look down on the small size of the godly pig. He'll torture you to death later. Your majesty, release the pig and bite him. The corner of He Xingjia's eyes twitched. How come all her subjects had become idiots? This really had nothing to do with her. Although this fellow was cursing in his heart, he still said, 10,000-year-old single pig, torture him to death. Zhou Hao was stunned when he heard He Xingjia's words. 10,000-year-old single pig? What nonsense was this? This little pig wanted to torture him to death? This was simply nonsense. At this moment, everyone was shocked to discover that the purple little pig had turned black. Its body was rapidly growing larger and a pair of wings had grown out of its back. Zhou Hao was still in a daze when De Hua sent him flying with a kick. Like a kite with its string cut, Zhou Hao crashed into a large rock and fainted with a choking sound. He Xingjiu immediately pointed at the people of the Li Hate Palace and said heroically, "Who else? Who else? Do any of you still want to come up and court death?" The people of the Li Hate Palace were clearly greatly frightened by De Hua. It was not that De Hua was terrifying, but that they were unable to digest it in a short period of time. How could a spiritual beast actually grow larger? Change its color? Grow wings? The hardcore fans of the East Phoenix country were in an uproar. All sorts of praises were poured into their ears. They almost knelt down and worshipped He Xingjiu as their ancestor. He Xingjiu raised her chin in satisfaction. Yes, this was the feeling, this was the style. She was now the female emperor of the East Phoenix country. Who was she afraid of? She had a killer weapon like a gigolo by her side. Who was she afraid of? If not for the fear of destroying her image, this fellow might have thrown her head back and laughed a few times to express her arrogance. The people from the Li Hen Palace finally came to their senses. Elder Zhu carefully sized up De Hua. Although this spirit beast was a little strange, the female emperor of Zephyr's spirit energy was limited, so this spirit beast was nothing to be afraid of. Elder Zhu frowned. This woman, the female emperor of Zephyr, had a lot of tricks up her sleeves. It was better to end the battle as soon as possible. Therefore he did not ask anyone else to accept the challenge. Instead he walked towards He Xingjiu personally. He Xingjiu's heart skipped a beat. She could deal with the scum from the Li Hate Palace, but this Elder Zhu's spiritual power was much higher than hers. She was not confident that she could win against him. This fellow blinked and snorted coldly, "I want fight with trash like you. Brother Wuji, I'll leave it to you." Shui Wuji, who was watching the show, Shui Wuji, who had been forced into a corner, saw that He Xingjiu had already moved closer to Beiming and was acting cute. He could only walk over to Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu did not have much information about Shui Wuji. He only knew that a bewitching and handsome red-robed man had suddenly appeared beside the female emperor of Zephyr. He sized Shui Wuji up. His spiritual power was on par with his, both at the 5th level of psychic power. However, he did not take Shui Wuji seriously. Although their spiritual power was the same, he had much more experience in fighting enemies than him. It would not be a problem to take him down. However, after exchanging blows, Elder Zhu was horrified to discover that although Shui Wuji's spiritual power level was the same as his actual ability was far beyond the 5th level of psychic power. He could not help but secretly complain. Shui Wuji, on the other hand, was free and unrestrained. He thought to himself that it would be a good opportunity for little sister Jiu to see how powerful he was. He did not want to feel that he was the #1 person in the world with facial paralysis all day long. However, that facial paralysis was indeed abnormal. He was simply inhuman. Elder Zhu quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. He simply ordered the people behind him to attack together in anger out of embarrassment, hoping to win by relying on numbers. Who would have thought that just as he finished speaking, a white shadow flashed by and Di Biming joined the battle. In the blink of an eye, Elder Zhu was held in Di Biming's hands. He Xingjiu was immediately energized. She held the rolling pin and pointed at the people of the Li Hate Palace. Hey, get out of my way or I'll kill this old bastard. The people of the Li Hate Palace looked at each other. This was completely different from what they had expected. They had thought that with so many people surrounding the people of the East Phoenix Kingdom, they would be able to capture them easily. Who would have thought that Elder Zhu would be held hostage in such a short period of time? The people of the Li Hate Palace turned their gazes to Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu shouted in terror, "Move, move, move." The people of the Li Hate Palace had no choice but to make a path for He Xingjiu and the others to pass through. He Xingjiu held Elder Zhu hostage all the way out of the valley. When they were about to board the flying spirit tool, this fellow raised his staff and smacked Elder Zhu to death. The people of the Li Hate Palace were furious. Female Emperor Fenghua, didn't we agree that as long as we let you all leave, you would let Elder Zhu go? Why did you kill him? He Xingjiu curled her lips. Don't you know that war is all about deception? A bunch of idiots. Go back and tell that palace master of yours not to think that everything will be fine just because he clings tightly to Tower Master Luochen. Sooner or later I will kill him. After He Xingjiu said those harsh words, she flew away on her flying spirit tool. The people of the Li Hate Palace wanted to chase after her, but when they thought of Di Biming's abnormal spiritual power, they retreated in dejection. Seeing this, He Xingjiu sighed and said faintly, "I'm still too weak. When will I be as powerful as you, Prince Charming? Even if I'm as powerful as Brother Wu Ji." Pan DN0V1 from a certain venerable looked at her indifferently. Since you know that you're too weak, why don't you come and cultivate? He Xingjiu. He Xingjiu wished she could slap herself, but she still followed a certain someone into the cabin. Prince Charming, the heavens and earth have a conscience. It's really not that I'm slacking off or not cultivating properly. You also know that my constitution is quite special. If it weren't for the heavenly lightning striking me, I wouldn't have been able to level up even if I didn't eat or sleep. He Xingjiu blinked her eyes, she said sincerely. A certain lord looked at her and said, even if I can't level up, it's still good to consolidate my foundation. It's better than reading a book. He Xingjiu, alright, I can't win against you. This fellow pretended to cultivate for a while, and his heart started to grow wild. When he opened his eyes and saw that Di Biming didn't say anything, he took out the 10,000-year-old black iron chain and started to grind the cloud fishing hook. Wu Yun had been kidnapped by her and was probably going to come and take revenge on her soon. She had to hurry up and fix the hook so that she could catch a few more little dark clouds. When this fellow thought about how she could live a life where she could be struck by lightning anytime in the future, she immediately smiled with her eyes curved. She wished that Wu Yun would come and take revenge on her right away. When she thought of Wu Yun, this fellow thought of her crow's beak skill again. It had been so long, but she still could not find the trigger point for the crow's beak skill. Why was it sometimes effective and sometimes not? This was different from Xiao Hanio's curse. Xiao Hanio's curse could only be used once a day, and her crow mouth skill could sometimes be used twice a day, and sometimes not even once. What the hell? In the next few days, He Xingjiu focused on sharpening the cloud fishing hook. Finally, on this day, this guy's cloud fishing hook was completed. In fact, the process was not complicated at all. The main reason was that the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron was too difficult to get. This guy had a large kitchen knife and a small flame. It was not easy to make a large hook. In order to train her cloud fishing skills, this fellow let little Wu Yun fly around randomly. She squatted at the porthole of the flying spirit tool and swung the 10,000-year-old black iron chain to fish for clouds. This fellow muttered while fishing, "This 10,000-year-old black iron chain is too damn heavy. Fortunately, I have enough strength. Otherwise, I would not be able to move it at all." Hearing this fellow's muttering, the corners of Shui Wuji's eyes could not help but twitch violently. Of course it was heavy. The 10,000-year-old black iron chains in this guy's hand were connected together. They weighed several thousand kilograms. How could they not be heavy? He Xingjiu also found a problem. Since the black iron chains were chains, they were different from fishing rods. They always hung down. If she wanted to catch little Wu Yun, she had to fly higher than little Wu Yun. This was difficult. She would not have a chance to fly higher than Wu Yun. Wouldn't all her previous efforts be wasted? The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. His mood fell from heaven to the 18th level of hell. He hatefully summoned little Wu Yun back and returned to his cabin. This guy fiercely threw the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain to the ground and cursed, "What the fuck? What 10,000-year-old mysterious iron? Bullshit. It's not even as good as an ordinary bamboo pole." In his anger, this guy accidentally cut the back of his hand with the hook in front of him. Immediately, fresh blood came out. She became even angrier and kicked the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain several times. The 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain didn't do anything, but her foot hurt. She couldn't help but feel sad. She hummed and left the cabin to complain to a certain venerate. Seeing the wound on her hand, the venerate's face immediately darkened. "How did you do it?" Hei Shinjio felt even more wronged. She threw herself into the venerate's arms and began to cry. A certain being couldn't care less about the seal anymore. He asked anxiously, "What happened? Who hurt you? Were they the idiots in your spirit beast bag? Xiao Hanio, Xiao Hei, Cat Cub, who did they offend? How did they become the suspects all of a sudden? Alright, you're right if you're strong. Just bear with it." In fact, a certain entity was not targeting them. It was mainly because a certain entity thought that other than him and Yun Chuzhou, there were only Shui Wuji and Enfeng on the flying spirit tool. Naturally, they would not hurt Hei Shinjio. In that case, the targets of suspicion would naturally be the dumb cuties. Hei Shinjio hummed and said, "They didn't do it. It was the damn cloud fishing hook." A certain lord was dumbfounded. Wasn't the cloud fishing hook used to catch little Wu Yun? Why did it hurt itself? Seeing the lord's blank face, Hei Shinjio sobbed and told him what had happened. Then she said angrily, "I spent so much time and effort, but in the end I found that the damn 10,000-year-old black iron chain couldn't be used as a fishing rod at all. How can I hold my breath? What's worse is that I cut myself. I'm so miserable." A certain Jio's face was stiff. How did she get the cut on her hand like that? A certain Jio who was amused suddenly froze. She looked down and saw that a certain Jio had put her injured hand on his lips. "Prince Charming, come. Don't waste it. Drink all the blood." A certain Jiu's expression suddenly turned cold. She pinched Hei Xinjia's chin and said word by word, "I've said that I want die and I want drink your blood again. Have you forgotten?" Hei Shinjio sensed that a certain Jio was a little displeased. She pouted and said, "I'm just afraid that it'll be wasted. If you don't want to drink it, then don't drink it." What a disgrace. A certain Jio wanted to explain, but she didn't know where to start. Therefore she didn't say anything. She took out some hemostatic powder from her storage ring and sprinkled it on a certain Jio's wound. In fact, it was fine even if she didn't sprinkle it. Because in just a short while, a certain Jio's wound had already healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Hei Shinjio pouted and glared at a certain Jio. Then she said angrily, "You don't have to pretend to be kind. I'm leaving." A certain venerable, what kind of madness was this? Actually, Hei Shinjio was completely venting her anger. She was in a terrible mood now. She had been busy for so long and had placed so much hope on it, but in the end, it was all for naught. How could she not hold her breath? When this fellow returned to the cabin and saw the black iron chain on the ground, he was instantly infuriated. However, this thing was extremely hard. If she were to kick it, she would be asking for trouble. The guy blinked his eyes. Humph. Even if he couldn't do anything to it, he had to vent his anger. Therefore the guy summoned a small flame and burned the black iron chains. As he burned them, he cursed, "Trash. What 10,000-year-old black iron? Bah. It's not even as good as an ordinary fishing rod. You trash can only be used to tie demon beasts. Those demon beasts are also weak. They were actually trapped by you. If I knew you were such a trash, I wouldn't have spent so much effort to connect the chains together. What a waste of time." After cursing for hundreds of times, Hei Shinjio finally felt relieved. However, even though the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain had been burned for a long time, there was no change. The guy had no choice but to put it into his storage ring and ignore it. A few days later, the flying spiritual artifact finally arrived in the Juntiantian kingdom. Hei Shinjio did not return to the capital directly. Instead, she settled down at the border and was ready to wait for Emperor Jinglai and the others to bring an army over. Half a month later, the Yutian kingdom and the other 8 kingdoms had indeed sent an army together and led the troops to the Juntiantian kingdom's border. He Xingjiu greeted Emperor Jinglai and the others with a smile. Then she said, "Isn't it great to have friends come from afar? It doesn't matter if we are enemies or friends in the future. After all, we have known each other for a while. Come, let's have a feast and drink to our heart's content under the sky." Emperor Jinglai and the others still hadn't made up their minds on whether they should ally with the East Phoenix Kingdom or follow the arrangements of the Lihan Palace and destroy the East Phoenix Kingdom. Therefore, they didn't reject Empress Jio's suggestion. After all, in this open space under the watchful eyes of the public, she didn't dare to do anything. He Xingjiu looked at the wine cup in a certain honored lattice hand with envy. She took a sip of tea without any taste and said, "Your Majesties, I know that you are also very conflicted and have a hard time making a decision. After all, you carry the legacy of your ancestors and the expectations of your subjects. The burden on your shoulders is too heavy." Hearing He Xingjiu's words, Jing Lidi and the others almost cried. Everyone thought that the emperor was free and unfettered, but in fact only they knew the bitterness inside. They had to go to court before dawn, and if they were delayed for even a day, they would be called stupid, which imperial concubine couldn't be taken care of. Otherwise the families behind them would cause trouble. There was no need to mention the subjects. If there was any disturbance, any natural or man-made disaster would be attributed to them. Not to mention there was also the great mountain of the Lihan Palace. He Xingjiu saw the change in the expressions of Emperor Jinglai and the others. She sighed. "Alas, in fact we are all in the same boat. Therefore, even if you submit to the Lihan Palace's arrangement to destroy our East Phoenix Kingdom, I will not blame you. After all, you have no choice." Hearing Yun Chujia's sincere words, Emperor Jinglai and the others immediately felt a little embarrassed, but they didn't know how to explain it. After all, their army was already behind them. "Your Majesties, let me say something. Even if your army comes to the border, I won't worry about my own safety. After all, my fiancé is a great weapon that can destroy heaven and earth. None of you can do anything to me. At worst, my husband and I will just wander around the world and be at ease. However, you might not be able to escape unscathed by then. They have plotted for so many years. I'm afraid that it's time to close the net. Destroying our East Phoenix Kingdom is just the beginning. None of your 8 kingdoms will be able to escape. If you want to escape the fate of having your kingdoms destroyed, you only have one choice, and that is to form an alliance with me. Otherwise your end will be very miserable." Emperor Jinglai and the others looked at each other in silence. They admitted that what Yun Chujiu said made some sense, but her fiancé and her evil schemes were not enough to move them. This was a life-and-death decision, so they naturally wouldn't make it easily. He Xingjiu blinked her eyes and continued, "Have you ever thought about where the people of the Lihan Palace come from?" Jinglai Di said with some trepidation, "I've thought about this question before. It's highly likely that they are from the northern continent." Yun Chujiu nodded. "You're right. According to the information I have, the Lihan Palace is most likely a puppet of the 9 pavilions of the northern continent. Then here comes the problem. Since the 9 pavilions have already begun to take action, do you think they will be at ease letting you continue to govern? The 9 pavilions' ambition is to rule the northern and southern continents. The first step is to first rule the southern continent and then accumulate power to rule the northern continent. Therefore you are destined to be sacrificial victims. There is only one ending, and that is death." A certain venerable glanced at He Xingjiu indifferently. The 9-layered pavilion wanted to rule the northern and southern continents? This fellow didn't even blink when he lied. However, he frowned. It wasn't impossible. Lan Luochen had always been an extremely ambitious person. It was likely that his goal was to rule the northern and southern continents, just as little Jiao had said. Emperor Jinglai and the others knew very little about the situation in the northern continent. After being tricked by He Xingjiu, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that there was no way out. However, they still had doubts. Although the Lihan Palace had ulterior motives, this Empress Fenghua might not have any good intentions. Furthermore, how could she possibly go against the Lihan Palace? Just as the atmosphere was in a stalemate, the sky suddenly darkened. Everyone was puzzled. It was already morning, so how could the sky turn dark? Everyone raised their heads and looked up. They saw a large patch of Wu Yun gathering from all directions with a thunderous momentum. Almost at the same time, everyone was suppressed by the immense pressure. Their legs trembled slightly, and they even found it difficult to speak. Di Biming's brows were tightly knitted together. With such a big stance, could it be that they were here to seek revenge on Little Nine? This time Wu Yun was coming menacingly. He was afraid that it would not be good. The 2 bones in his hands had already been used by him. In a while he would not be able to help even if he wanted to. Baiming's hands tightened in his sleeves. After dealing with the Lihan Palace he had to start doing some things. Otherwise he would not be able to protect little Nine's safety. He Xinjiu knew better than anyone that these Wu Yun were coming for her. She felt so wronged. It was all the fault of those damn 10,000-year-old black iron chains. Otherwise she would have been able to catch a few little Wu Yun and anger those old Wu Yun to death. This guy said shamelessly to Emperor Jinglai and the others, "You have eaten and drank from me. You can't possibly not show your gratitude, right? Come, lend me all your flying spiritual artifacts. I have great use for them." Jinglai Di and the others felt as if their hearts were going to explode. Were they the ones who wanted to eat and drink? She was the one who had sent the invitation, okay? And now she was asking for a reward? She was really shameless. And borrow? She was clearly robbing them by force, okay? However, they were restrained by Wu Yun's pressure at the moment, and their movements were very slow, not to mention fighting with their spiritual power. The girl opposite them and her fiancé were completely fine. They could only be slaughtered by others now. Therefore, Emperor Jinglai and the others had no choice but to lend a few flying spiritual weapons to He Xinjiu. Although He Xinjiu was not very satisfied, she did not want to go too far. She said with a smile, "Thank you, your majesties. At this moment I won't hide anything from you. The dark clouds in the sky are all my little Wu Yun's relatives. They are here to visit." Shui Wuji almost laughed out loud. "Little ninth sister, can you talk more nonsense? Visit their relatives? They are clearly here to seek revenge on you, okay?" Emperor Jinglai and the others' faces were stiff. Wu Yun came to visit her relatives? Wu Yun came to strike people, okay. Was she bullying them because they were uncultured? They looked at Empress Jiao with a complicated expression. This little girl wouldn't be struck to death by heavenly lightning, right? If that was the case they didn't have to hesitate anymore. They could only obey the Lihan Palace's order to destroy the East Phoenix Kingdom. At this moment Wu Yun had already approached them. He Xinjiu waved her claws and said, "Well, I'll bring little Wu Yun to see my relatives first. You guys can go ahead." He Xinjiu said as she ran outside to prevent the heavenly lightning from striking down and implicating the innocent. Emperor Jinglai and the others wanted to leave, but it was very difficult to move under the immense pressure, let alone return to their own base. They could only sit down embarrassedly and stretch their necks to look at He Xinjiu's shrinking back. Baiming was worried and followed He Xinjiu from afar. He Xinjiu thought to herself as she ran. This time it was not going to be easy. There were 8 dark clouds coming this time. They were trying to strike her to death. It was unlikely that she could withstand them with only her flying spiritual artifact. Unless she could find a place to hide from the heavenly lightning. However, there was no such existence within a radius of several thousand li. Could it be that she could only watch as she was struck to death? Thinking of this fellow was extremely resentful of the cloud fishing rod that had died prematurely. If it was not for the 10,000-year-old black iron chain that was not strong enough, what was there to be afraid of? How many dark clouds had been fished over by it? Let's see how they will continue to show off. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky had already caught up with He Xinjiu. Wuya number 1, the unlucky fellow who had been kidnapped by He Xinjiu, glared fiercely at He Xinjiu. "Damn girl, you're dead meat this time." With 8 dark clouds gathered together, not to mention a damn girl like you, even the mighty figures of the higher continent would not be able to resist. You would only have a dead end. The more Wu Yun number 1 thought about it, the more excited he became. The entire cloud started to tremble. The other 7 dark clouds looked at the little girl below with disdain. With just this fellow, was there a need for them to act together? That trash number 1 actually let this little girl steal a cloud wing? It was really embarrassing. Therefore, when Wu Yun number 1 gave the order to strike, the 7 dark clouds struck with indifference. He Xinjiu saw that the heavenly lightning was already striking down, so she decided not to run anymore. She sat cross-legged on the ground and absorbed the lightning that kept striking down. He Xinjiu was quite surprised. It seemed that the strength of the heavenly lightning was very ordinary. Could it be that the 7 dark clouds that came to help Wu Yun were newbies? Soon an hour passed. The 7 dark clouds that came to help looked at He Xinjiu in surprise. After striking for so long, nothing happened? It seemed that number 1 was not lying. This little girl was indeed a disaster. Therefore, the 7 dark clouds stopped being perfunctory and started hacking at Hei Shinjio with all their might. This time, Hei Shinjio could not hold on any longer. The lightning power of the 8 dark clouds was not a joke. It was only this pervert. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been hacked into ashes in an instant. Hei Shinjio blinked her eyes. Her spiritual power was not enough to supplement her intelligence. Now she could only rely on her wits. Therefore, this guy stretched his neck and shouted, "Hey, wait a minute. Let's pause for a moment. I have something important to say." Wuya number 1 knew that this guy was full of bad ideas, but the other 7 flowers did not know. They all stopped the lightning strikes, wanting to hear what Hei Shinjio had to say. Seeing this, Wuya number 1 had no choice but to stop the lightning strikes. A sense of foreboding rose in his heart. Hei Shinjio said obsequiously, "It's my great honor to be able to meet all the Lords Wu Yun today. My little heart has been beating non-stop. I'm afraid that I'm the only one who can be struck by 8 dark clouds at the same time. This is a blessing that I will never be able to recover from in 8 lifetimes. The imposing aura and thunderous aura of all the Lords Wu Yun make people submit from the bottom of their hearts. I will die without regrets if I can see such a scene before I die." Wu Yun number 1 cursed in his heart. "Bah. Shameless. Don't play this trick. If your little heart doesn't beat, you'll be fucking dead." Unfortunately, the other 7 Wu Yun had never seen such a trick before. Hearing Hei Xinjia's heartfelt praise, all of them trembled with pride. It had to be said that although this little girl was a scourge, she still knew how to talk. Wu Yun number 1 trembled a few times in dissatisfaction, indicating for the 7 dark clouds to continue hacking. However, the 7 dark clouds had never heard such a vivid praise. Not only did they not help Wu Yun number 1 to hack, they even told it not to hack first. In order to not delay the little girl's words. Wu Yun number 1 was so angry. How was the helper it found? It was clearly a burden. Hei Shinjio narrowed her eyes. It seemed that both people in Yun liked to hear good words. In any case, it was a good opportunity for her to sort out the brutal power of lightning in her body. Therefore, the guy said with a smile, "I don't know the distinguished names of all of you, Lord Wu Yun, but I see that there are 7 of you besides the previous one. Why don't I call you by the rainbow color?" Wu Yun number 1 was so angry that it was twitching. Why was it eliminated? Did it not want a name? No. It did not care about the name given by the girl. It just did not feel good to be treated differently, okay? The other 7 were very happy. Rainbow color? It sounded very high and mighty, didn't it? Lord Chi, Lord Orange, Lord Huang, Lord Green, Lord Blue, Lord Purple, Little Gio salutes you. Hei Shinjio bowed to them in a proper manner. The 7 rainbow clouds that had just come out of the oven trembled with pride. Previously they only had numerical code names. Who would have thought that from now on they would also have names? Moreover, it was a rather cool rainbow color. Just thinking about it made them a little excited. Wu Yun number 1 snorted in his heart. A bunch of idiots. That little girl was a devil that ate people without spitting out their bones. There was no need for you all to cry. Following that, Hei Shinjio rambled on with a bunch of flattery, causing the 7 rainbow clouds to be unable to find Bei, not to mention helping Wu Yun number 1 strike Hei Shinjio. Wu Yun number 1 was so angry. He simply ignored them and continued to hack at Hei Shinjio. Jealousy. It's pure jealousy. Rainbow Cloud Lords, it can't stand to see you well. Hei Shinjio shamelessly tried to sow discord. The 7 rainbow clouds were quite dissatisfied with Wu Yun number 1. They had asked it not to split the rainbow clouds, so why didn't it listen? Could it be that it couldn't stand to see them happy? If it had known this would happen, it wouldn't have come to help it. No wonder the little girl had stolen a cloud wing. Such a fool deserved it. Therefore, the 7 rainbow clouds floated below Wu Yun number 1, and all the lightning from Wu Yun number 1 struck the 7 rainbow clouds. Wu Yun number 1 almost gasped. How was this a helper? They were clearly enemies. Hei Shinjio almost laughed out loud. These 7 rainbow clouds were really naive and innocent. Thus, this fellow tried even harder to curry favor with her, just short of flying up to the sky to hug her thigh. While she was trying to curry favor, on the other side, Emperor Jinglai and the others were staring in Hei Xinjia's direction with their mouths agape. They naturally couldn't hear what Hei Shinjio said, but they had clearly seen the situation of the Wu Yun. Oh my god. Even after 8 dark clouds struck for such a long time, they still could not kill the female emperor of Fenghua? Also, Who could tell them why those 7 dark clouds were helping that little girl resist the heavenly lightning? Were they crazy? Or did Wu Yun start an internal conflict? Di Biming, who was not far away, heard everything clearly. His eyes could not help but reveal a helpless and doting look. It had to be said that little Jiu's mouth had saved her countless times. It was just that he did not know if these silly clouds would always be kept in the dark. Wu Yun #1 could not take it anymore. He used Wu Yun's unique method to shout, "Don't forget that our mission this time is to kill this scourge below. Moreover, time is limited. After all, you have other missions to carry out. If you continue to cause trouble, be careful not to be punished by Tian Dao." When the 7 rainbow clouds heard Wu Yun #1's words, they instantly wilted. They could only reluctantly continue attacking He Xingjiu with Wu Yun #1. Although it would be a pity if this sweet-mouthed little girl died, if Tian Dao was dissatisfied he might kill them. Therefore it was better to carry out the mission obediently. He Xingjiu's heart tightened when she saw Wu Yun's sudden attack. She reckoned that no matter how sweet words she said, it would be useless. She could only rely on herself. Therefore this guy started to release Xiao Hanyo, Xiao Mogu and De Hua. The 7 rainbow clouds were stunned, especially when they saw De Hua, who had turned black. Oh my, there was such a perverted spiritual beast in this world? A spiritual beast that could devour lightning? He Xingjiu could only hold on for less than an hour, so she had to take the flying spiritual device to walk the clouds. Although this method was not bad, the heavenly lightning that came from the 8 Wu Yun was too powerful. A flying spiritual device could not last for long, and 10 flying spiritual devices could only last for 15 minutes. The flying spiritual devices in He Xingjiu's storage ring soon ran out. He Xingjiu had no choice but to call out little Wu Yun and let it help carry her for a while. When the 7 rainbow clouds saw little Wu Yun, they were stunned at first, then they began to mock Wu Yun #1. It was so stupid. Its cloud wings were actually refined by the little girl. It was really embarrassing. Wu Yun #1 suddenly became even darker. It risked its life to hack at little Wu Yun, wishing that it could immediately chop little Wu Yun into pieces. Wu Yun soon reached its saturation state. Just as He Xingjiu was about to put it into her storage ring, she heard a loud voice from afar, "Little Jiu, let Wu Yun carry you. After it consumes the power of lightning, it can help you resist the heavenly lightning again." He Xingjiu slapped her thigh. That's right. Why didn't she think of that? She was really smart and muddle-headed, thanks to the gigolo. Therefore, this fellow let little Wu Yun carry her and began to run wildly. Wu Yun #1 was so angry that he almost fainted when he saw his cloud wings carrying He Xingjiu everywhere. This was his cloud wings. Now it had become the smelly girl's flying spirit tool. It was a great humiliation. After a while, when little Wu Yun's lightning power was about to be exhausted, He Xingjiu let it land on the ground and helped her resist the heavenly lightning while charging it. Little Wu Yun had absorbed enough lightning and once again carried He Xingjiu on her back. He Xingjiu sat on little Wu Yun, feeling extremely happy. With such an awesome cheat like little Wu Yun, did it mean that she could walk the cloud indefinitely? Little thing, not to mention 8 black clouds, she was not afraid of even 18 black clouds. Panda N0, VE1 compared to Wu Yun's good mood, Wu Yun #1 was furious. How could he bully the clouds like this? Was there anything worse than using his cloud wings to deal with them? As time passed, the 7 rainbow clouds became anxious. They had other missions and had been delayed for a long time. They had to finish the battle as soon as possible. Therefore the 8 dark clouds used their full strength and hacked at He Xingjiu and Wu Yun. After a while, Wu Yun could not hold on anymore. Although it could release lightning and then absorb it, there was a limit. Finally, it collapsed on the ground and could not fly anymore. He Xingjiu could only put Wu Yun into her storage ring and hold on by herself. The meridians in her body were about to explode at any moment. This fellow could not help but complain in his heart. It's over. This time she was most likely going to die. She had not slept with the gigolo, she had not found her biological parents, and she had not given birth to the little monkey. She really did not want to die. A moment later, blood began to seep out from her body, and her spiritual sense slowly became a little blurry. At this moment, the heavenly lightning that kept striking her body stopped. She raised her head with great effort and saw Di Biming, who was wearing a white robe, forming seals and protecting her with his spiritual energy. Yun Shujiu did not say anything to chase Di Biming away. She knew that no matter what she said, the gigolo would not abandon her. She might as well use this time to say a few words of truth. Hei Shinjo looked at a certain god lovingly and shouted, "My idol, the biggest regret in my life is that I can't sleep with you." A certain god, Wu Yun number 1, the 7 rainbow clouds, Di Biming looked at her speechlessly and said indifferently, "No need to regret. You can continue sleeping in your next life." The lightning paused for a moment and then struck down fiercely. Although they usually did not strike the wrong target, they would not show mercy since this man came to seek his own death. The thunder kept striking down. Although Di Biming's spiritual power was much higher than Hei Xinjia's, he was still a man of flesh and blood after all. His spotless white clothes were soon dyed red with blood, but he still protected Yun Chujio firmly. Yun Chujio laughed softly, but there were tears flowing out of the corners of her eyes. "Prince Charming, not only can we not have sex when we are together, but I also caused you to be injured and struck by the thunder time and time again. Do you regret falling in love with me?" Di Biming could no longer stand. He was kneeling on the ground, but he was still making seals slowly and firmly. Hearing Yun Chujia's words, the corner of his lips curled up. No regrets. Yun Chujia's face was full of tears, but her smile was even more brilliant. She raised her head and said to the sky, "Damn the heavens. Strike. If you have the ability, kill me today. Otherwise, I don't care about the Tiandao or the laws, I will definitely make this world change." As Yun Chujio said that, she suddenly stood up and held up her hands to protect Di Biming. Di Biming was about to say something when Yun Chujio bent down and covered Di Biming's lips with blood. Wu Yun in the sky was so angry. At this time that stupid girl actually played the kissing game. Shameless. Strike her. Kill her. A series of heavenly lightning struck Yun Chujio's body, but Yun Chujio did not seem to hear it. She was still lingering with Di Biming's lips and teeth. The seal in Di Biming's body instantly exploded. His limbs and bones were filled with pain, and almost instantly his entire body was covered with a layer of solid ice. Yun Chujio could not help but smile bitterly. The god really could not bear to see them. Panda N0, V1 It was impossible to kiss them before death, but this was good too. At least the pretty boy's life could be saved. Thinking of this, Yun Chujio moved to the side with difficulty. She wanted to attract the heavenly lightning to the other side so that it would not strike Di Biming. However, this guy suddenly realized that the solid ice on Di Biming's body was like armor. It actually protected Di Biming from the heavenly lightning by accident. Hei Shinjo, this guy was stunned for a moment, and then he shamelessly lay down on a certain venerate. He mumbled, "Prince Charming, I didn't expect your cold poison to have such a use. Don't reseal it now. Help me carry the lightning and bear the pain. It's not a big deal." A certain venerate, what happened to love being stronger than gold? Didn't he say that they would live and die together? Was it really good for him to do that? The heavenly lightning struck Di Biming's body continuously. To be exact, it struck the hard ice continuously. The hard ice melted continuously and new hard ice was formed. The evaporated water vapor turned into mist. The deep pit where the two of them were in now looked like a fairyland. Hei Shinjo took a moment to recover. The wounds on her body healed quickly. She was in a good mood now. "Prince Charming, I finally understand now. In this world there are no absolute good or bad things. Just like your cold poison, it's usually so annoying. At the critical moment it can actually save our lives. How amazing is that?" Di Biming endured the bone-piercing pain and lightly agreed. No matter what, as long as he could save little Jio's life, he was willing to endure even if the pain was 10,000 times more painful. Hei Shinjo was afraid that a certain honored guest would be unable to bear the pain and faint, so she kept blabbering on and on, trying to find something to say. In the beginning, Di Biming briefly agreed, but as the cold poison took effect, he finally fainted. Yun Chujia's heart ached, and her heart was filled with hatred towards Tiandao and Wu Yun. She did not know how long the ice on Di Biming's body could last. She hoped that she could turn black. If that was the case, she might be able to withstand the heavenly lightning and not need the gigolo to protect her. However, no matter how angry she was, there was still no change. This guy was so angry. Dehua could turn black just by saying 10,000-year-old single dog. Why was it so difficult for her to turn black? This guy thought of the great void mirror that had been sleeping for a long time. Damn that little Jingjing. If it did not sleep, it could have taken her into the great void mystic realm. How could there be such a thing? She thought of the cloud fishing hook that had died prematurely, and was even more furious. If it could be as useful as the fishing rod, she could have sat on the little Wu Yun to fish for the clouds. Thinking of the cloud fishing hook, this fellow took out the cloud fishing hook desperately. However, when he saw the cloud fishing hook, this fellow was dumbfounded. Was this the cloud fishing hook that she had personally made? The body of the rod was pitch black and transparent. At the top of the rod was a hook that emitted a cold light. The black iron chain had actually become a fishing rod. Hei Shinjio held the freshly made cloud fishing rod in her hand and realized that it had become very light. What was going on? However, no matter what, with the cloud fishing rod she had a weapon for revenge. Hei Shinjio summoned little Wu Yun out. After a short rest, little Wu Yun had already recovered a little. Little Wu Yun, whether we can live or not depends on this. In a while, try your best to get close to one of the dark clouds. Master, I will chop off a few to accompany you. Little Wu Yun also knew that if Hei Shinjio died, it would not be able to live either. Therefore, it trembled, indicating that it understood. Hei Shinjio looked at the cloud fishing rod in her hand again. Everything was fine except that it was a little short. It seemed that she had to get close to the dark clouds to have a chance of winning. This fellow looked at Di Biming who had passed out. Then he sat on the little Wu Yun and rushed towards a dark cloud in the sky. Coincidentally, the one closest to her was Wu Yun No. 1. It saw Hei Shinjio holding a black hook in her hand and riding on the little Wu Yun as she rushed up. It was immediately frightened. This damn little girl wanted to steal its cloud wings again? Wu Yun quickly asked the other 7 rainbow clouds to help it hack at the small black cloud, in case Yun Chujio got her way. The 7 rainbow clouds did not think much of the cloud fishing rod in Hei Xinjia's hand. As long as they were struck by lightning, the hook would turn into ashes, let alone steal the cloud wings. However, their crackling attacks did not cause any damage to the cloud fishing rod. Instead, they were getting closer and closer to Wu Yun No. 1. Wu Yun No. 1 roared in exasperation. Are you stupid? If you can't hack the hook, can't you hack the little Wu Yun who is a traitor? The 7 rainbow clouds thought that Wu Yun was right. As long as the little Wu Yun was broken, the little girl would not be able to fish the cloud. Therefore they hacked at the little Wu Yun. The little Wu Yun had not recovered from the shock. After being hacked, she could not help but start to fall. Hei Shinjio clenched her teeth in anxiety. She was so close to catching Wu Yun No. 1. Was all her previous efforts going to waste? In his anxiety, he mumbled, "It would be great if the cloud fishing rod was longer. Even if it were 10 feet longer, I would be able to catch that damn Wu Yun." As soon as he finished his sentence, the cloud fishing rod suddenly grew a lot longer and hooked Wu Yun No. 1 firmly. Wu Yun No. 1 was dumbfounded. What the hell was this thing? Not only was it not afraid of being struck by lightning, but it could also grow longer. This really took its old life. If it wanted to escape, it could only give up on the cloud wing that was hooked onto it. However, once it gave up on the cloud wing, it would definitely be kidnapped by that stinky girl. Then would it still want to live? Just as Wu Yun No. 1 was hesitating, he saw Hei Shinjio already climbing up along the cloud fishing rod. Her eyes were filled with sinister intent. It was obvious that she was going to personally chop down the cloud. Wu Yun No. 1 was so scared that he shivered. He quickly called the other 7 rainbow clouds to chop Hei Shinjio with all their might. Unfortunately, the resentment in Hei Xinjia's heart was too strong. Even though blood was oozing out from her body, she continued climbing up. Finally, she reached Wu Yun No. 1. The guy took out his big kitchen knife and hacked at her fiercely. While slashing, he mumbled, "Damn it. This slash is for the pretty boy, this slash is for Xiao Hanio, this slash is for Xiao Mogu, this slash is for Xiao Wu Yun." As Hei Shinjio hacked, she stuffed Wu Yun into her storage ring. The blood on her body dripped onto Wu Yun continuously. Then Wu Yun No. 1 was stunned to discover that the cloud wing that was hooked on the hook had actually taken the initiative to break away from its control. In other words, it had mutinied. Just as Hei Shinjio was happily hacking away, the cloud wing broke away from Wu Yun No. 1 and carried Hei Shinjio as it floated towards little Wu Yun. The 2 cloud wings quickly fused together. Yun Chujia's spiritual sense transmitted Wu Yun's happy mood as if, she had eaten her fill. Hei Shinjio did not have time to think about it. She directed Wu Yun to approach Wu Yun No. 1 once again, preparing to catch a few more little Wu Yun. Wu Yun No. 1 was scared silly. Oh God! Why did its cloud wings suddenly betray her? If that wretched girl were to come any closer, wouldn't it lose its cloud wings? The other 7 rainbow clouds were also shocked. They had watched the entire process from the sidelines. This little girl had actually taken a cloud wing so easily? She had only slashed a few times. Why did the entire cloud wing betray her? Wu Yun number 1 couldn't care less about whether it was slashed or not. It had a premonition that if that little devil caught up to it, it wouldn't be able to keep a single cloud wing. Thus, Wu Yun number 1 flew away with a swoosh. Hei Xingjiu frowned and looked at the 7 rainbow clouds. Little red Chi, little orange Ching. Come, we have to give each other a gift on our first meeting. You guys can give me a little Wu Yun for me Yun. The 7 rainbow clouds twitched in anger. A gift for their first meeting? Give you a little Wu Yun? Dream on. However, when they thought of what they had seen just now, they did not dare to deal with Hei Xingjiu any longer. They all fled with a swoosh. Hei Xingjiu chased them for a while but failed to catch up. She was so angry that she cursed with her hands on her hips. If you have the ability, don't ever attack me. Otherwise I'll make you run for your lives. The 8 Wu Yun could not wait to hug each other and cry. After chopping down so many people for so many years, this was the first time that they had not only failed to chop someone to death, but they had also been abducted by Yun Yi. They simply could not live anymore. The 7 rainbow clouds silently decided in their hearts that they would not come and chop this little devil down even if they were to talk about flowers in the future. Otherwise, if Yun Yi was abducted by her, they would really run for their lives. After Hei Xingjiu warned the 8 Wu Yun, she flew back to the deep pit. Di Biming had already woken up and was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Prince Charming, I scared Wu Yun away. You can seal the 7 emotions and 6 desires now. Hei Xingjiu said as she stared at a certain god's beautiful face with regret. Once the seal was resealed, she could neither kiss nor touch him. What a pity. Since Di Biming needed some time to reseal it, this guy simply took the cloud fishing hook and began to think. How did it suddenly become like this? This guy thought about it carefully. Previously, the cloud fishing hook had cut her hand. Then, in order to vent her anger, she used a small flame to burn the cloud fishing hook for a long time. Was this equivalent to refining a weapon? However, she did not beat it. How did it become the cloud fishing rod that she wanted? This fellow thought about it for a long time but still could not figure it out, so she decided not to think about it. Anyway, as long as the result was good, it would be fine. The next time the damn Wu Yun attacked her again, she would fish a few more small Wu Yun for fun. Thinking of the small Wu Yun, Hei Xingjiu looked at the small Wu Yun that had grown a size. Other than growing bigger, little Wu Yun did not change much. However, Hei Xingjiu felt that since she had grown bigger, she could absorb the power of lightning faster. She was getting closer to the day when she could be self-sufficient in lightning. Hei Xingjiu thought about the bright future and smiled like a flower. If her little Wu Yun was as awesome as the big Wu Yun in the sky, she could cultivate at any time. Moreover, who would dare to provoke her? Kill him. As for the little Wu Yun leaving the big Wu Yun after a few cuts, this fellow did not take it to heart. It was probably the big Wu Yun who abandoned the pond to protect the cart. Just as this guy's thoughts were running wild, a certain someone opened his eyes. However, the eyes that were originally warm were now filled with coldness. It seemed to be even colder than the previous few times. Hei Xingjiu was not surprised by this. After all, even if it was a 10,000-year-old ice, she could melt it with a few touches. Prince Charming, since you have sealed it, let's go back to the camp. Hei Xingjiu said with a smile. Without even looking at her, a certain someone flew out of the deep pit and jumped towards the camp without even looking back. Hei Xingjiu, fuck, he just kissed her and now he didn't want to admit his mistake? He was just trying his best to protect me. How did he turn into an ingrate in such a short time? However, Hei Xingjiu also knew that this was the result of the seal. It was useless even if she banged her head against the wall in anger. Therefore, this guy summoned little Wu Yun and sat on the little Wu Yun, chasing after Di Biming happily. Little Wu Yun's speed was very fast. A moment later he caught up with a certain god. Hei Xingjiu giggled at a certain god. Prince Charming, how is it? No matter how fast you run, you're still faster than my little Wu Yun? Come up and sit for a while. Experience the feeling of riding on the clouds and mist. A certain god finally raised his head and looked at Hei Xingjiu. He opened his thin lips and said indifferently, no need. Hei Xingjiu curled her lips. She could not stand his cold and arrogant manner, therefore she blinked and said, Prince Charming, your lips were swollen by my bite just now. Aren't you going to deal with it? If we return to the camp, I'm afraid that people will gossip about us. A certain someone stumbled and his hand could not help but touch his lips, but he did not notice anything strange. Just as he was puzzled, he heard He Xinjia's clear laughter. "I'm lying to you, my little fool." Before a certain someone could say anything, he saw He Xinjiu fly away on the little Wu Yun, leaving behind a string of silver bell-like laughter. A certain someone felt inexplicably irritated, and his face turned even colder. He leaped forward like a ghost. While He Xinjiu was sitting on the little Wu Yun, her scalp went numb. Then she saw a flying sword beside her. Standing on it was a certain lord with a cold face. He Xinjiu laughed dryly and waved her claws. "Prince Charming, do you want to sit on my little Wu Yun?" The certain lord did not say a word. The cold air on his body made the little Wu Yun tremble a few times and almost threw He Xinjiu down. He Xinjiu quickly smoothed her hair. With a flattering face she said, "Prince Charming, what should I do? I find that I love you more and more. I can't help but love you. Especially now that you are as cold as ice. You are always pulling my heartstrings." "Nonsense." After saying that, a certain lord quickly rode his sword and left. However, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed that he was running away. He Xinjiu whistled complacently. "Little fellow, no matter what you become, you will never be able to escape from me." He Xinjiu flew to the camp on Wu Yun. All the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom kneeled on the ground and cheered like a tsunami. "Female Emperor of Zephyr's beauty is unparalleled in the world. Female Emperor of Zephyr's beauty is like a sinking fish, falling geese, closing the moon and embarrassing the flowers. Female Emperor of Zephyr's beauty is invincible." He Xinjiu looked at the crowd with satisfaction. This feeling of acting cool was really satisfying. This fellow pretended to be calm and waved his hand. "All of you get up. I still have guests here." Only then did Prime Minister Sima and the others stand up one after another. He Xinjiu directed little Wu Yun to land on the ground and then looked at Emperor Jinglai and the others. Emperor Jinglai and the others were so frightened by the cheers of the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom that their legs went soft. They were still somewhat envious and jealous. Why had their subjects never been so enthusiastic before? Of course, what made their hearts tremble even more was what had happened earlier. The lightning had struck for a whole day and night, and in the end, they were scared away by this little girl. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that there was someone in the world who could scare Wu Yun away. Moreover, this little girl had actually come back on a dark cloud. It was simply too frightening. Emperor Jinglai and the others had been hesitating before whether to join the Lihan Palace or form an alliance with the East Phoenix Kingdom. Now they had suddenly decided to form an alliance with the East Phoenix Kingdom. After all, no matter how terrifying the Lihan Palace was, how could it be as terrifying as Wu Yun? This little girl could even scare off Wu Yun, so why would she be afraid of a mere Lihan Palace? Immediately, Emperor Jinglai and the others expressed their intention to form an alliance with He Xinjiu. He Xinjiu didn't take advantage of the situation and smilingly signed an alliance agreement with Emperor Jinglai and the others. "Your Majesties, the most important thing now isn't to gather an army to destroy the Lihan Palace. We need to do two things first," Empress Jiao said with a smile. Emperor Jinglai and the others were puzzled. What was more important than destroying the Lihan Palace? The corners of Empress Jiao's mouth curled up. The first thing is to create public opinion. The Lihan Palace relies on the national advisors of the various countries to control the direction of public opinion. If you don't create public opinion that is in your favor once the war starts, I'm afraid that there will be chaos in the country. As for how to create public opinion, it's very simple. You can say whatever you want to discuss the Lihan Palace. After all, you have those children in your hands, so you aren't afraid of being questioned. As for the second matter, once the public opinion is more or less guided, you can start to make an example out of the imperial advisors of the various countries. Those who are obedient can be kept, and those who are not can be killed directly. Jing Lai Di and the others were stunned when they heard this. To be fair, they had long disliked those imperial advisors. Sometimes, those imperial advisors had even higher prestige than the country emperors like them. They were simply depressed to the extreme. "Your Majesty Fenghua, you said that the first matter is easy to handle, but the second matter is a little difficult to handle. Those imperial advisors have a secret method to communicate with the sacred beasts of the various countries. If they are provoked, will there be any trouble?" Emperor Jinglai said somewhat apprehensively. Yun Chujiu laughed lightly. "Perhaps some people can really master some so-called secret methods, but don't worry. Even if they do, they don't have any great abilities. To put it simply, if they really had such great abilities, would the Lihan Palace still need to let you sit on the throne? Those so-called holy beasts are either fictional or just remnant souls that have been locked up. They won't be able to stir up any trouble. Just do it. If you can't handle it, send a message to me. I'll handle it for you. If He Xinjiu had said this before, Emperor Jinglai and the others would have scoffed at her. However, now that they had witnessed how abnormal this fellow was, they immediately nodded their heads. After discussing the details, everyone left with their own troops. Yun Chujiu also heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. However, she didn't order the troops stationed at the border to retreat. It was better to be on guard. Yun Chujiu took Prime Minister Sima and the others and set off for the capital. On the flying spirit tool, she gathered Prime Minister Sima and the others to discuss the matter of spreading public opinion. She was busy all the way until evening before returning to her cabin. Yun Chujiu ate something carelessly. Recalling what had happened in the past 2 days, she could not help but sigh heavily. This fellow had always been cheerful and optimistic. However, yesterday, Di Biming had almost lost his life in order to save her. This fellow's heart was really very uncomfortable. However, her unlucky physique could only be upgraded by being struck by lightning. Even if she did not eat or drink, it was useless to cultivate. Therefore, she could only follow a curve to save the country. There were 2 steps. First, she had to rapidly expand her power. It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. As long as she had her own influence and controlled the southern continent, that Lan Luochen would not be able to do anything to her. Second, when Wu Yun came to attack her, she had to try to catch a few more small dark clouds. This way, it would be much more convenient for her to cultivate. He Xinjiu held her chin and thought for a while. Then, she remembered that she had not seen a certain person since she got on the flying spirit tool, so she went outside the cabin of a certain person. This guy knocked on the door politely, which was rare for him. When a certain someone's cold voice came from inside, he walked in with a smile. As expected, a certain someone was meditating and cultivating. When he saw He Xinjiu come in, he frowned slightly and asked, "What's the matter?" "Yes, I miss you." He Xinjiu came to the side of a certain someone and said with her starry eyes. The Lord was obviously confused by He Xinjiu's shameless look. When he came back to his senses, He Xinjiu had already hugged his arm and said with a whimper, "Prince Charming, tell me, am I very useless? Every time I say I have to work hard, but every time I get you injured." A certain lord was about to break away from He Xinjiu's embrace, but when he saw that He Xinjiu's eyes were slightly red and full of tears, his heart suddenly tightened and he said with a stiff face, "You are very good." "Liar. How am I good? Even if I was struck by lightning this time and advanced 4 levels, I'm still only at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. I'm not even smart. I'm simply a useless piece of trash." He Xinjiu initially had the intention to tease him, but as she spoke, it turned out to be true. She felt wronged and guilty, and her tears fell onto the back of his hand. A certain honored warrior only felt that the drops of tears were burning his heart. The 7 emotions and 6 desires that had just been sealed were loosened once again. A certain honored warrior sighed in his heart. It seemed that there was no need to seal the seal anymore. Unless he couldn't see this little rascal, it was useless. A certain honored warrior endured the pain that surged up from his limbs and bones once again, and held Yun Chuji's head with his hand. He said word by word, "You went from an adopted daughter of a low-level continent to the female emperor of Zephyr. This shows that you are strong and hardworking. You saved the safety of the Azure Mystic continent, the Tianyuan continent, and the Immortal Yuan continent. This shows that you are smart and courageous. Therefore, not only are you not a good-for-nothing, but you are also the smartest and strongest woman." Upon hearing Di Biming's words, He Xinjiu's eyes immediately lit up like stars. She stammered, You really don't think that I'm a good-for-nothing? Moreover, I'm very powerful?" Di Biming nodded. Looking at Yun Chuji's sparkling eyes, he lowered his head and kissed her. He Xinjiu, who was dizzy from the kiss, had a question in her mind. Isn't the gigolo sealed the 7 emotions and 6 desires? How a word not to kiss on. The 2 of them lingered for a long time. Di Biming then realized that there was nothing strange in his body. The pain that had entered his bone marrow had disappeared. He Xinjiu saw this and immediately attributed this matter to Di Biming kissing her. That was why the cold poison in his body had stopped. Di Biming naturally would not believe her nonsense. It was not like he had never kissed her before. The two of them discussed and concluded that it was most likely related to Baiming being struck by lightning. Perhaps the thin Jin his body was intimidated by the heavenly lightning, so it stopped for the time being. Hei Shinjio clapped her hands. If that's the case, things will be easier. The next time you have a relapse, I will strike you with lightning. A certain night, why did he feel that the little rascal was gloating? Hei Xinjia's previous depressed mood was swept away. She happily nestled in a certain venerable's embrace and chattered non-stop. Baiming only listened with a smile. Occasionally he would exchange a few words. It was only when Hei Shinjio yawned because of her sleepiness that he said, "Little Jio, when the matters of the Li-Hate Palace come to an end, I'm going to leave for a period of time. You stay obediently in the southern continent. You must not take the risk to go to the northern continent. Do you hear me?" Hei Xinjia's face immediately scrunched up. "Must I leave?" Baiming nodded. "Little Jio, the matter is far more complicated and dangerous than you can imagine. I must take back some of my things so that I have the ability to protect you." Hei Shinjio pursed her lips. "All right, then go and settle your matters. I will be obedient and cultivate properly. I will not cause you any trouble." Baiming's heart softened when he saw Hei Xinjia's obedient look. He carried her to the bed and laid down beside her. Hei Shinjio yawned again and mumbled, "Idol, I think that what Blackhead said about him having a son is most likely true. Why do you think we let him beat us to it? I've decided that if we have a daughter in the future, we'll kidnap Blackhead's son and make him our son-in-law. We'll bully him to death." A certain someone, Prince Charming, who did you say slept with Black Rooster Head? I'm afraid ordinary women won't be able to deal with that pretentious guy. Hei Xinjia's sleepy eyes flashed with a strong light of gossip. Baiming looked at her speechlessly. "Aren't you sleepy? Why aren't you sleeping?" Hei Shinjio mumbled a few more words before falling into a deep sleep. However, it was not stable to fall asleep. She did not know what she was dreaming about. Sometimes she cried and sometimes screamed. It was not until she was held in Baiming's arms that she finally stopped. Baiming's eyes flashed with pity and ruthlessness. There were some things that had to be done. Although it might make the situation even more chaotic and passive, it was time to go back for the sake of his and little Jio's future. The next day, Hei Shinjio woke up from a certain honored warrior's embrace in a refreshed manner. The guy rubbed against the honored warrior's chest and mumbled, "It's better not to be sealed. Otherwise, I'm always worried that it'll make you sick from flirting with me." The honored warrior smiled bitterly in his heart. At this moment he was also being teased to the point that he wished he were dead. At this moment he was truly envious and jealous of that idiot Shui Wuji. In the other cabin, Shui Wuji sneezed hard and couldn't help but mutter, "Eh? Did that heartless woman or Ruier miss me?" At this moment, this guy didn't know that his son had been targeted by Hei Shinjio and was labeled as a visiting son-in-law. After Yun Chujio returned to the capital, regardless of whether it was the feedback from the various countries or the progress of the matter regarding the East Phoenix Kingdom, everything went smoothly. However, when Tian Yun Chujio received two pieces of news, it caused her to frown slightly. "Your Majesty, the national advisor of the original East Phoenix Kingdom, Yuanji, is missing. In addition, the national advisors of the South Dragon Kingdom, West Tiger Kingdom, and North Shen Kingdom used a secret technique to attract the appearance of the divine beasts. For a time, the people in the three kingdoms were in a state of panic. The kings of the three kingdoms sent letters requesting for help," Prime Minister Sima reported. Yun Chujio's frown deepened. She had always had a good impression of Yuanji. Although she had not agreed when he had chosen her to be his handmaiden, he had not made things difficult for her in the later stages. Why had he run away? As Hei Shinjio thought about it, her eyes suddenly widened. She finally understood why the palace master of the Lihen Palace looked somewhat familiar. Now that she thought about it, although his appearance was different, his temperament was exactly the same as Yuanji's. Could it be that Yuanji was the palace master of the Li-Hate Palace? On one hand, Yun Chujio felt that this was unlikely, but on the other hand, her intuition told her that the palace master of the Li-Hate Palace was Yuanji. She recalled some clues. Lan Luochen had once said that he had done many things in order to see her. Back then, she had been found by the Yun clan because Yuanji had told the monarch of the East Phoenix Kingdom that she would save the East Phoenix Kingdom from danger. That was why the Yun clan had sent people to find her. Thinking about it this way, Yuanji might really be Lan Luchen's man. The reason why he had become the imperial preceptor of the East Phoenix Kingdom was most likely to be to spy on her. However, Yun Chuzhou still could not understand. Wasn't this overkill? Back then, the East Phoenix Kingdom was only a third-grade small country. Was there a need to have the palace master of the Lihan Palace personally guard it? However, when Yun Chuzhou heard the news that Prime Minister Sima had mentioned later on, she understood a few times. There were so many countries of all sizes, but they had not heard of any problems with the divine halls of any country. Only the South Dragon Kingdom and the other 3 countries had problems. This meant that only the remnant souls of the divine beasts of these 4 countries still existed. The rest was most likely just a cover. Perhaps Yuan Jie's main purpose in becoming the state preceptor of the East Phoenix Kingdom was not to find her, but to plot against the remnant souls of the 4 divine beasts. The more He Xingjiu thought about it, the more she felt that this was the case. Also, the last time at the Chaotian sect, Lan Luochen wanted to find the black bead. There might be some connection between them. He Xingjiu thought about it for a while, and finally decided to go to the 3 countries of the South Dragon Country to take care of the remnant souls of the divine beasts that turned into demons. She could use them to replenish the Qiongqi and the others. Thinking of the Qiongqi and the others, Yun Chuzhou recalled that the Great Void Soul Replenishing Formation needed to be set in an extremely cold place. After taking care of the remnant souls of the divine beasts of the 3 countries this time, she could let the pretty boy bring her to the bottomless ice abyss in the immortal Yuan continent. She needed to repair the remnant souls of Qiongqi and Tao Wu. Qiongqi boasted that as long as the souls of the ferocious beasts were solid enough, they could produce new shells. If she had Qiongqi and Tao Wu as her henchmen, wouldn't she be happy? The more Yun Chuzhou thought about it, the more excited she became. She immediately flew to the southern dragon country with Di Biming and the others on the flying spiritual device. When Emperor Nanshan saw He Xingjiu, he was as obedient as a little daughter-in-law. Now he could not be compared to before. Thinking back to the time when they were both the kings of the third-grade countries, now that the little girl had become the king of a first-grade country, what else could he do? What else could he do other than bow down to her? Yun Chuzhou went straight to the point and asked about the golden dragon. Didn't I scare the golden dragon out of its wits last time? Why did it come out to be a demon again? Chapter 36-46. Female Emperor Fenghua is a jinx. Emperor Nan Xian said with a bitter face, "Your Majesty Fenghua, don't mention it." At first, everything was peaceful, but later the state preceptor, Huan Shi, used some unknown method to lure out the remnant soul of the golden dragon. It would appear every 3 days. And Emperor Nan Xian looked troubled when he said this, as if he didn't know whether to continue. Yun Chuzhou smiled faintly, "Just tell the truth. I'm not a stupid monarch." The corner of Emperor Nan Xian's mouth twitched. He continued, "Furthermore, the golden dragon said that you, your majesty, are a jinx. If we do not push you down from the throne, not only will the southern dragon kingdom suffer, but the entire sky-high continent will suffer as well." Yun Chuzhou pouted, "Let's go and meet that lecherous dragon right now." Emperor Nan Xian said nervously, "Your Majesty Fenghua, I'm afraid that golden dragon is not easy to deal with. How many people should we bring?" "It's enough to bring the imperial guards to protect you. Leave the rest to me," He Xingjiu said lightly. Although Emperor Nan Xian felt that He Xingjiu's words were a little arrogant, he thought that this monarch who had become a first-class country's monarch in a short period of time was naturally very capable, so he nodded in agreement. The group of people left the palace and went straight to the Divine Hall. Unexpectedly, the people of the South Dragon Kingdom who were already gathered at the entrance of the Divine Hall were all shouting angrily, "Female Emperor Fenghua, you jinx, quickly abdicate." "Yes, Female Emperor Fenghua, you stupid monarch, stay away from our Divine Hall. Your Majesty, Lord Dragon God has already made it very clear that this Female Emperor Fenghua is a scourge. Why are you still so respectful to her? Don't you listen to Lord Dragon God? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. Emperor Nan Xian kept wiping the cold sweat on his head and hurriedly expressed his loyalty to He Xingjiu. "Your Majesty Fenghua, these people are full of nonsense. I am loyal to you." Yun Chuzhou ignored him and glanced at the angry crowd. She laughed lightly. "You are really bold. Do you have no brains or do you want to die? I am the monarch of a first-class country, and you are merely the citizens of a third-class small country. You want to go against me with just a few words of encouragement from a broken bug? Let alone a few thousand of you, I can destroy the entire southern dragon country if I want to. Since you say that I am a scourge and a jinx, then I will be a stupid monarch to grant you your wish. I will kill all of you." Men, kill them all. Leave no one alive. The citizens of the Southern Dragon Kingdom were all dumbfounded. There was no one else who could be such a righteous and foolish ruler. It was only then that they realized that the female emperor of Fenghua whom they were targeting was no longer the monarch of the East Phoenix Kingdom. Instead, she was the monarch of a first-class kingdom. She was not someone they could afford to provoke. When they saw that the soldiers were actually planning to kill them, they were terrified. A hawk-nosed man immediately knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty, please spare us. Your Majesty, please spare us. We were all instigated by the divine dragon. Those were not our true words." With the leader, many people quickly knelt down, and immediately, a series of pleas for mercy sounded. Hei Shinjio did not even bother to look at them. These people were just fence-sitters and had no position at all. She simply waved her hand and ordered the soldiers to disperse these people. Then she ordered people to break open the door of the divine hall. Emperor Nanxian secretly wiped off his cold sweat. It had to be said that this little girl was really courageous. To deal with these people who had already lost their minds, it was impossible to reason with them. Only such a thunderous stance could intimidate them. Chapter 36-47. Encountering the Golden Dragon again. The door of the Divine Hall was knocked open, and a few maids and guards of the Divine Hall stood behind an old man, trembling. Yun Chujio sized up the old man, thinking that this should be the current imperial preceptor of the Southern Dragon Kingdom, Huan Shi. Huan Shi also sized up Yun Chujio, but his gaze lingered on Di Baiming and Shui Wuji for a moment, because he could see that among these people, the two of them had the highest spiritual power. He sneered, "What? Is the female emperor of Fenghua planning to openly make an enemy of our Lihate Palace? Aren't you afraid of incurring a disaster?" Yun Chujio curled her lips. "You're already on the brink of death. Why are you still pretending? I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Prince Charming, capture him and search his soul directly." Huan Shi never thought that Yun Chujio would be so direct. He shouted, "Aren't you afraid of the divine dragon getting angry?" Yun Chujio smiled like a flower and said, "Dragon god? How can that perverted dragon be called a dragon god? I'm here to destroy its soul." Huan Shi was completely dumbfounded. Initially he thought that the Palace of Hatred and the Dragon God were two safe talismans. He did not expect Yun Chujio to not fall for it. What should he do? Before he could think of anything, Di Baiming's figure had already arrived in front of him. Huan Shi hurriedly accepted the challenge. Even though he had used all his strength, he was still imprisoned by Di Baiming after a few rounds. Di Baiming immediately began to search his soul. Unfortunately, before he could get any critical information, Huan Shi had already bled to death from his 7 orifices. Yun Chujio was stunned. His divine sense was actually imprisoned? Why was this method so similar to the Divine Devil Hall? Could it be just a coincidence? Just as Yun Chujio was thinking about it, she saw a huge golden dragon appear on the altar. When the huge dragon saw that Yun Chujio was her enemy, it was especially jealous. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Last time, this stinky girl borrowed the dragon to kill people and somehow attracted a bolt of lightning. It almost scared it to death. Later, it realized that the lightning was definitely just a coincidence. This time it had to take revenge. As long as it brought this stinky girl to its palace, she would not be able to escape from its palm. At that time, it would be able to possess her. When the golden dragon thought of this, it said arrogantly, "Little girl, if you obediently ascend the altar, I will spare you people. Otherwise all of you will die today." Yun Chujio giggled a few times and then said disdainfully, "Are you lying to a ghost? Don't think that I don't know. You can only pretend to be a ghost on the altar. If you have the ability, come and bite me." Golden Dragon. Golden Dragon gritted his teeth. "Stupid girl, if you don't come up, I will show my spirit every day and let everyone know that you are a disaster and a jinx." Yun Chujio spread her hands. "It's up to you. No matter what you say, everyone will think that you are a crazy dragon. Anyway, the people of the Southern Dragon Kingdom are quite poor in their spare time, so I can treat you like a monkey." The golden dragon was so angry that it almost could not maintain its phantom image. This wretched girl was really too detestable. The golden dragon gritted its teeth. Even if it lost some of its scales today, it would still possess this wretched girl. Hence, a gust of wind blew in the divine hall. When everyone opened their eyes, Di Baiming and Yun Chujio had both disappeared on the spot. Emperor Nanxian and the others were instantly numb. It's over. Where did Emperor Fenghua and her fiancé go? Could they have been taken away by the dragon god? Chapter 36-48. Riding on Wu Yun to split the dragon. Shui Wuji raised his eyebrows sinisterly and said casually, "Don't worry. Little sister Jiu will be back soon." Emperor Nanxian and the others were skeptical. That was a divine dragon. Although it was only a remnant soul, it was still very terrifying, okay? On the other side, Di Baiming and Yun Chujio had already arrived at a stone hall. Previously, Di Baiming was afraid that Yun Chujio would be in danger, so he had been holding her hand all this while. Hence they were brought in together. In the middle of the stone hall was a stone platform. There was a huge skeleton on it, and there were many huge golden scales scattered around it. Yun Chujio swept her gaze across the stone hall and said to the smug golden dragon, "You prodigal thing? Why are there so many scales missing? I was planning to embed these scales on little Wu Yun's body to show off." Golden dragon, fuck. Those were its scales, alright. From the tone of this stinky girl, she actually treated its scales as her own. How shameless. And what the hell was Wu Yun? It must be some spirit tool of this stinky girl. She even gave it the name Wu Yun. How shameless. Golden dragon gritted its teeth and said, "Stinky girl, cut the crap. I let you escape last time, this time it won't be so easy." Yun Chujio was about to say something, but Di Baiming had already jumped forward and fought with Golden Dragon. Di Baiming knew that he was not a match for Golden Dragon, and he also knew that Hei Xinjiu had many remnant souls that could deal with Golden Dragon. However, this was a rare opportunity to improve his combat experience, so he did not plan to let it go. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Hei Xinjiu blinked her eyes and immediately understood Di Baiming's intention. Therefore, she sneaked to the stone platform and began to stuff dragon scales into her storage ring. At first, the golden dragon did not notice it, but when it saw Hei Xinjiu's behavior from the corner of its eye, it was so angry that it almost disappeared. It had seen shameless people before, but it was the first time it had seen such a shameless person. It did not care about Di Baiming anymore. It pounced on Hei Xinjiu while baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. "Stupid girl, stop." Hei Xinjiu naturally would not wait for her body to be possessed foolishly. She jumped to the side agilely and said with a smile, "I'll piss you off. I'll piss you off. Bite me if you have the ability." If the golden dragon had a shell, it would definitely spit out a mouthful of blood. It was simply infuriated to death. Just as it was about to continue chasing Hei Xinjiu, Di Baiming had already blocked its path. It could only engage in a battle with Di Baiming again. The golden dragon held its breath. Just what was the background of this man? How could his strength be so terrifying at such a young age? Although its spiritual power was not even 1/10 of its peak, it was still not that weak. 15 minutes later, Di Baiming was at a disadvantage. The golden dragon could not help but feel proud. Unfortunately, its pride quickly froze on its face because it saw that little girl sitting on a Wu Yun. The golden dragon recalled Yun Chujia's words about embedding its scales on Wu Yun's body. It was actually Wu Yun? Hey, you little bug. Do you know what this is? Watch my invincible little Wu Yun kill you. Hei Xinjiu said as she flew towards the golden dragon on the little Wu Yun. While the golden dragon was still in a daze, the little Wu Yun struck down several bolts of lightning above it. Not a single bolt of lightning wasted on the golden dragon. Although little Wu Yun's lightning was not very strong, it still struck the golden dragon until it trembled. The main thing that the remnant soul feared the most was heavenly lightning. How could it not be afraid? Chapter 36-49 shall be given to Wu Jie's head. The golden dragon immediately gave up. It hurriedly retreated to the side of the skeleton and said in a stern voice, "Stop. We have no worries in the distant days and no grudges in the near future. Let's just forget about this matter. I'll send you up and pretend that nothing has happened." Hei Xinjiu sat on the small dark cloud and flew around the stone hall a few times. She said disdainfully, "If you want to send us up now, you'll have to see whether we agree or not. I reckon that you can only send us up when we climb up the stone platform, right?" The golden dragon looked at Hei Xinjiu in disbelief. How did she know this? Yun Chujio saw the golden dragon's widened eyes and knew that she was right. She could not help but twitch her lips and say, "Little bug, You've ruined the souls of many women before. It's not an exaggeration to say that you'll die 10,000 times like this. So you should commit suicide. A trace of guilt flashed through Golden Dragon's eyes. He quibbled, that was all given to me by that idiot on his own initiative. Moreover, when he gave it to me he was already dead. It doesn't matter whether I absorb their souls or not. Pooey. You shameless bastard. How could it be the same? They're already dead, yet they still have to suffer your humiliation. You should simply go to the 18th level of hell. Damn it, I don't want to talk to a dragon scum like you. You two kill it. Hei Xingqiu released Tao Wu and Qiongqi as she spoke. After Tao Wu was released, he charged towards the golden dragon obediently. Qiongqi said obsequiously, "Little fairy, long time no see. You are becoming more and more evil. Now you even dare to kill the divine dragon. I love you to death." As soon as Qiongqi finished speaking, it felt a cold gaze on it. It then realized that there was a man in white standing on the other side of the stone hall. It immediately shrank its neck. It laughed dryly. What a child says, what a child says. Well, little fairy, I'll go and kill that evil dragon right now to avenge you. Hei Xingqiu's mouth twitched. What a child's words. What a child's words. He was really pretending to be young. The golden dragon was scared silly. This wretched girl actually had the remnant souls of Tao Wu and Qiongqi? The heavens wanted to kill it. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, the golden dragon pleaded while dealing with Tao Wu and Qiongqi. Little fairy, I'll give you all these scales. Please spare me. Yun Chuzhou looked at it as if she was looking at an idiot. Idiot, I can take the scales away even if I kill you. Also, your skeleton and the 6 10,000-year-old black iron chains are mine. Golden dragon. Tao Wu and Qiongqi's remnant souls were not as solid as the golden dragon, so there was no way to determine who was stronger. Hei Xingqiu decided to release De Hua as well. When the golden dragon saw De Hua in black, it immediately felt that there was no way out. It regretted it so much. If it knew this would happen, it would not have listened to Huan Shi's words. It would definitely stay quietly in the stone hall. It would definitely not provoke this little demon. Unfortunately, it was too late. The golden dragon lasted less than 15 minutes before it was eaten by De Hua and the others. Qiongqi burped and said, "Burp, burp, the souls of godly beasts are delicious. But, aren't the 4 godly beasts immortal? Why didn't it turn into a dragon egg?" Before Qiongqi finished his sentence, the skeleton and scales on the stone platform were burning rapidly, and a pure white egg appeared. Hei Xingqiu was dumbfounded. However, with the example of the phoenix egg, this guy quickly calmed down. She curled her lips. This golden dragon is a lecherous dragon. I don't want such a spiritual beast. When we go out, give this dragon egg to Wu Jia's head. He is more suitable. How did Chapter 3650 become a contract? The corners of Di Biming's eyes twitched when he heard Yun Chuji's words. Shui Wuji was indeed a good match for this dragon egg. Hei Xingqiu kept Tao Wu and Qiongqi and threw the dragon egg to Di Biming with a look of disdain. She then happily grabbed the 6 10,000-year-old black iron chains. This guy was planning in his heart. The few 10,000-year-old black iron chains were made into cloud hooks by her, and the remaining ones had to be saved so that she could refine them into puppets in the future. Thinking of puppets, Hei Xingqiu's face darkened. Puppet number 1, number 2, and number 3 self-destructed to save her last time, so she had time to make 3 new puppet plates. Di Biming did not have a spirit beast bag, so he could only hold the dragon egg with his hands and watch Hei Xingqiu pull the 10,000-year-old black iron chain. Crack, crack. Di Biming lowered his head suspiciously and saw that there was a crack on the dragon egg. He subconsciously put the dragon egg on the ground. The dragon egg soon broke into 2 halves and a cute golden dragon came out. The golden dragon ate the eggshell in 2 or 3 bites. Then it looked at Di Biming with admiration and said softly, "Daddy?" A certain dragon, seeing that Di Biming did not respond, the golden dragon reached out its claws to grab Di Biming's clothes. The certain dragon frowned and kicked the golden dragon away. The miserable golden dragon fainted with a choked sound. "Ah, Daddy? I'm dying of laughter. Prince Charming, it seems that this little lecherous dragon has mistaken you for its daddy." Hei Xingqiu laughed so hard that she could not even get up from the ground. The face of one of the dragons was very ugly. After a long while, it finally squeezed out a sentence. When it recognizes that idiot Shui Wuji as its master, it will naturally forget about this matter. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Seeing that the head of one of the dragons was about to explode with anger, Hei Xinjiu shrunk her neck and did not dare to add fuel to the fire. She continued to pull on her 10,000-year-old black iron chain. After the miserable golden dragon woke up, it flew to the side of the golden dragon. Just as it was about to speak again, it saw the cold eyes of the golden dragon. It was so frightened that it trembled and fell to the ground. Just as the golden dragon was slightly relieved, a timid voice came from its spiritual sense. "Father, are you angry?" The golden dragon was instantly in a bad mood. His eyes stared blankly at the trembling golden dragon on the ground. Did he establish a contract? He didn't do anything. How did he establish a contract with this thing? Hei Xinjiu noticed that Di Biming's expression was a little strange and asked worriedly, "Idol, what's wrong with you?" A certain deity pointed at the golden dragon on the ground with a stiff expression and squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. "Why did I establish a contract with it?" Hei Xinjiu was stunned at first, then she almost passed out from laughing. This guy really couldn't imagine that the gigolo had actually contracted a little perverted dragon. Was there such a contrast in cuteness in the world? Seeing that Yun Chuzhou was just laughing there, Di Biming's face turned even gloomier, and his cold eyes darted towards Hei Xinjiu. Hei Xinjiu finally stopped laughing after realizing her conscience. She touched her chin and said, "Prince Charming, maybe you were injured when you were fighting with the golden dragon, so your blood got on the dragon egg and then the contract was formed. Well, in fact, this little perverted dragon is not bad besides being lecherous. After all, it's one of the 4 great divine beasts." Hearing this, Di Biming looked at his own hand. As expected, there was an indiscernible wound. It was probably caused during a fight and then absorbed by the dragon egg, which was why the contract was formed. Chapter 3651. Kill it. Di Biming looked coldly at the golden dragon that was trembling on the ground. He raised his hand and a black frost fire appeared in his palm. He waved it at the golden dragon on the ground. The golden dragon was so scared that it flew out. How many lifetimes had it been unlucky? Why did Daddy want to burn it to death? Although it was a dragon that was not afraid of ordinary fire, it was the fire of ice. It could not withstand it. Hei Xinjiu was also shocked and quickly stopped him. "Prince Charming, what are you going to do?" Di Biming said coldly, "Kill it. Then it will be reborn and given to that idiot Shui Wuji." Hearing that, although the corner of Hei Xinjiu's eyes twitched a few times, she felt that the idea was not bad. After all, no matter how she looked at it, she felt that the pretty boy and the little lecherous dragon were not on good terms. The little golden dragon was about to cry. Didn't the inheritance say that it was one of the 4 great divine beasts? Didn't it say that everyone wanted it? Why did Harry Daddy want to kill it with a look of disdain? Although the little golden dragon tried its best to dodge, it had just broken through its shell, so it was no match for Di Biming. It was about to lose its life. Hei Xinjiu suddenly had a flash of inspiration and said, "Prince Charming, actually you don't have to kill it. You can cancel the contract with it. You can cancel the contract and then give it to Brother Wuji, won't that do? In that case, Brother Wuji won't have to wait for the time to break the shell. Otherwise, it might take a long time to break the shell, just like my phoenix egg." Di Biming frowned. He felt that what Yun Chuzhou said made sense. He stopped chasing after the golden dragon and concentrated his energy, wanting to cancel the contract with the golden dragon. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Unfortunately, he didn't know what kind of contract the golden dragon and Di Biming had established. Di Biming tried for a long time but he couldn't cancel it. He looked at the golden dragon with even colder eyes. Hei Xinjiu released the nightmare beast and asked, "Curly hair, do you have a way to get rid of the contract with the golden dragon?" The nightmare beast gloated at the trembling golden dragon. How could a godly beast have more than one? Wasn't it still a poor little thing that no one wanted? It said flatteringly, "Little fairy, as far as I know, other than an equal contract between a godly beast and a human, there is also a life and death contract between a master and a pet. In other words, unless the divine beast recognizes its master and dies, there is no way to break the contract." Hearing that, Di Biming raised his hand again, ready to kill the golden dragon. Meng Yanshou hurriedly continued, "Your Majesty, since this little dragon has already recognized its master, then even if you kill it, it will only recognize you as its master after it resurrects. Yun Chujio could not help but twitch her lips. Why does this little dragon look like a dog skin plaster? Can't it get rid of it? Meng Yanshou laughed dryly and did not say a word. It felt as though its heart was bickering with a dog. That little thing is the dragon of the 4 great divine beasts, all right? If it was an ordinary person who had a contract with a dragon, they would definitely wake up laughing in their dreams, all right? The little golden dragon wanted to get close to a certain one, but it did not dare to. It could only pitifully tremble on the ground. Seeing this, Hei Shinjio smiled and said, "Prince Charming, why don't you take it? No matter what, it's still a dragon. As for its lecherous behavior, if you really can't do it, you can turn it into a eunuch dragon. This way, it won't be able to flirt with other women." The little golden dragon, how could it bully a dragon like this? What did it do wrong that it would be given something inhumanely as soon as it was born? Chapter 3652. A rabbit doesn't eat grass near its nest. The little golden dragon saw the dark expression on the face of a certain dragon, as if it was really considering Hei Xinjia's suggestion, and it immediately felt hopeless. Could it be that it was going to become the first eunuch dragon in history? It bit its 2 baby teeth. Fuck, if its master really wanted to do something to it, it would commit suicide. Then it would stay in the egg and not come out until its perverted master was dead before it hatched. Obviously, the golden dragon had forgotten one thing. Once it turned back into a dragon egg, it would forget everything that happened in the past. How would it remember these things? Hei Shinjio stared at a certain one with a mischievous expression. Her words just now were naturally just words. She knew that Di Biming would never do such a shameless thing. Sure enough, although the certain one's expression was gloomy, it did not make a move. Instead, it said coldly to the golden dragon that was shivering on the ground, "I can keep you, but if you can't change your nature and become a womanizer, I'll follow Little Nine's instructions and directly turn you into a eunuch dragon. In addition, I'll give you a year. If you're still so weak, then you can turn back into an egg." The golden dragon was about to cry. The first one was easy to deal with. It was originally a little dragon, so why would it go and be a womanizer? But the second one is going to become stronger in a year? It's not giving it a way out. Although the golden dragon was on the verge of breaking down, it still said with a trembling voice, "Yes, father." Seeing Di Biming's gloomy face, the golden dragon swallowed the word father and changed its words, "Yes, master. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. Hei Shinjio blinked her eyes and said, "Prince Charming, you just accepted a new spiritual pet. Don't you need a nice name? I think the name Little Sexy Dragoni's a good name. You can remind it not to break the rules at any time." The corner of Di Biming's mouth twitched slightly, but he still nodded. "Sure, I'll listen to you." The little perverted dragon that had just come out of the oven couldn't help but cry out to the sky. Oh God! What kind of sin did it commit in its previous life? How did it meet these 2 perverts? The little perverted dragon grumbled in its heart while secretly staring at Hei Shinjio. Seeing the little perverted dragon staring at Hei Shinjio, Di Biming immediately kicked it away. "What are you looking at?" The little perverted dragon. It was so wronged. It only smelled the dragon scales on the female pervert, even though she was pretty. Hei Shinjio also felt the little perverted dragon's gaze and added fiercely, "If you keep looking, I'll poke your eyes blind. I'll rip off your tendons, eat your dragon meat and turn you into an egg." The little perverted dragon shivered and did not dare to look at Hei Shinjio again. It glanced at the Meng Yanshou, who was gloating at Meng Yanshou's misfortune, and was very unconvinced. This Meng Yanshou was also famous for being lecherous. Why didn't those 2 perverts despise it? Seeing the little perverted dragon looking at it, the Meng Yanshou grinned and snorted in disdain. "Idiot, a rabbit doesn't eat grass near its nest. How dare you peek at the boss woman? Aren't you courting death?" Hei Shinjio took out a high-grade spirit beast bag from her storage ring and handed it to a certain god. "Prince Charming, use this to pretend to be a little perverted dragon." A certain god frowned. How troublesome. If it wasn't an accident this time, he wouldn't have kept any spirit pets. It would have been fine as long as he kept the little rascal. If Hei Shinjio knew what a certain god was thinking, she would probably vomit blood. Did he treat her as a spirit pet? Was there such a beautiful spiritual pet like her? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.